Imagine this moment, right now. Just you sitting, standing, lying down. Maybe there's a breeze nearby, or maybe it's still. Perhaps you're indoors, surrounded by familiar walls and gentle hums of your environment, or outside with birds, people, distant cars. Wherever you are, notice this: you're here. And that simple fact, that undeniable presence, is more powerful than we often realize. This is the start of mindful rest. Not a rest defined by sleep or a break in your schedule, but a deeper, quieter rest. One that doesn't ask you to stop your life, but to meet it fully. Mindful rest is not something we earn or postpone. It's not something hidden in some perfect version of our lives. It's available right now, through awareness. Unlike physical rest, which asks the body to slow down, mindful rest calls upon your attention to arrive. To pause the turning of the mind, not by force, but by settling. It invites the constant chatter to soften, not disappear, but quiet just enough so you can hear what's underneath. Beneath the thoughts, the planning, the evaluating, there's a gentle, stable presence. This is the ground of mindful rest, not escape, but return. In Buddhist thought, the importance of the present moment can't be overstated. Presence is not just a technique, it's a path, a principle, a refuge. When the Buddha spoke of mindfulness, what in Pali is called sati, he wasn't pointing us towards something abstract or distant. He was pointing to direct experience, not thoughts about your breath, but the breath itself. Not a memory of walking, but the sensation of foot touching ground. Not a dream of peace, but the lived, felt peace that arises when we no longer flee this moment. And this matters, because without presence, we're not truly resting. We may be still, but the mind races. We may be lying down, but the heart is restless. Rest, in this deeper sense, happens when we allow the moment to be enough. That's the heart of it, letting the moment be enough. No need to change it, embellish it, or resist it. In fact, this is where peace begins, not with effort, but with release. Not with striving to be peaceful, but by opening to what's already here. Peace isn't some distant reward. It's the nature of the mind when it's no longer in conflict with the now. And this now, this breath, this heartbeat, this feeling of the air around your skin, it's trustworthy. It holds you, even if your circumstances are hard. Even if your mind is tired, the present moment offers a doorway back to calm. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer pushing against what is. So often we believe peace is something to chase. Something out there, waiting in a future when things settle down. But the Buddhist teachings offer a different view. They tell us peace isn't found by rearranging the world. It's discovered by rearranging how we relate to the world. Imagine that for a moment. That peace could be available even if the noise doesn't stop. Even if the responsibilities are still there. What if it's not about changing the situation, but changing how we meet it? When we let go of chasing peace, we start to see it in the smallest things. In a sip of warm tea, in the breath that leaves the body without asking for permission, in the pause between sounds. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about remembering that each moment offers a resting place, if only we're willing to rest in it. So now, just take a breath. Not a deep one, unless you feel like it. Just one that you notice. Let it come, let it go. That breath, that single, ordinary breath, is the doorway, the place where the external world and your inner world meet. This is the gateway to mindful rest, and it's open to you right now. The role of the present moment in Buddhism is both foundational and profound. It's not simply about being present in a casual, surface-level way. It's about awakening to what is real, here and now. The present moment is where life unfolds. It's the only place we can breathe, feel, and act. And yet, so often, our minds drift. They wander toward the past, reliving old conversations, regrets, victories, and losses. Or they surge forward into the future, planning, predicting, worrying, hoping. But in the Buddhist tradition, the invitation is to return, again and again, to this moment. Why? Because this is the only place we can truly be alive, and the only place we can find peace. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent, changing, shifting, arising, and passing away. Thoughts come and go, feelings come and go, bodies change, relationships evolve, seasons shift. Nothing stays fixed, but the present moment is always fresh, always new, and always available. To live in the present moment doesn't mean we forget the past or ignore the future. It means we recognize that clinging to either can disturb the mind. If we cling to the past, we suffer regret or nostalgia. If we cling to the future, we suffer anxiety or impatience. But the present, it offers us a kind of clarity, a simplicity. Here we meet life directly. Mindfulness, sati, is the tool, the method, and the path. It trains us to observe without reacting, to see without judgment, to feel without fleeing. Imagine standing in the middle of a stream. Thoughts and emotions are the water flowing around you. Mindfulness doesn't try to dam the water or escape it. It simply stands still and watches, with curiosity, with care. In the Satipatthana Sutta, one of the core teachings on mindfulness, the Buddha outlines the four foundations: mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of the mind, and of mental objects. These aren't abstract categories, they are invitations to turn inward, to see clearly, and in that seeing to rest. The present moment is not some narrow slice of time. It's vast, it's rich, it's full of textures and sounds and movements and silences. When we attend to it, really attend, we discover layers we'd usually miss. The way light reflects off a window pane, the quiet rhythm of your own breath, the feeling of your feet against the floor. Each sensation is a doorway, a path back to stillness. This isn't always easy. Our culture values speed, productivity, forward momentum. Stillness can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. But with practice, something shifts. Stillness begins to feel natural, even nourishing. The present moment isn't something you have to earn. It's not a prize for good behavior. It's not a technique that only experts master. It's simply what is, and to rest in it is to come home. Think of a time you felt deeply present, maybe watching a sunset, holding a loved one's hand, or sitting quietly after a long day. In those moments, your mind wasn't racing ahead. You were just there, fully, and wasn't there a kind of peace in that? This is what the Buddhist path offers, not escape from life, but intimacy with it. When we stop resisting what's here, we find it holds more comfort than we expected. Even difficult moments, when met with presence, can soften. Sadness may still be there or pain, but it no longer defines us. We rest beside it rather than being consumed by it. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha teaches mindfulness of breathing, not just to calm the mind, but to develop insight. When we watch the breath, we're watching the dance of life. Each inhale new, each exhale complete, nothing held back. And that's a teaching in itself. Life doesn't wait, it flows. And when we flow with it, we rest. Peace, then, isn't the absence of noise or problems. It's the absence of struggle. And when we open ourselves to this moment, without judgment, without grasping, we find that peace was never far. It was simply buried under all the effort to be elsewhere. This is why Buddhist teachers across generations have returned, again and again, to the simplicity of presence. It's why monks walk slowly through temple gardens and nuns quietly wash their bowls. It's why lay practitioners close their eyes for a few minutes before speaking. They're not escaping life. They're entering it, fully, respectfully, tenderly. You don't need robes or rituals to do the same. You just need willingness to stop, to look, to listen, and to let what's here be enough. So take a moment, feel your breath, your body, your place in the room. Notice the quality of your mind, not to fix it, but to know it. This too is part of the practice, meeting yourself where you are. That's presence, that's peace. And from that place, you can begin again. Peace begins now. That's not a poetic exaggeration. It's a radical truth offered by the Buddhist tradition. We tend to think of peace as a destination, something far down the road, something that will come when all the tasks are complete, when our relationships are smooth, when the world settles down. But that imagined future never quite arrives. There's always one more thing, one more email, one more decision, one more uncertainty to manage. And so, peace remains just out of reach. But what if that's not how peace works at all? What if peace isn't something to attain, but something we uncover right here, right now, by shifting our attention? In Buddhist teachings, peace isn't a luxury. It's a fundamental aspect of the awakened mind. It's not about being indifferent or disconnected. It's about being in intimate contact with reality without needing it to be different. Imagine sitting by a lake on a still morning. You don't need to change the lake for it to reflect the sky. You just need to stop stirring the water. The same is true for your mind. So how do we stop stirring? We begin by noticing that we're stirring. We pause. We breathe. We bring gentle awareness to the habits of pushing, pulling, analyzing, comparing. And then we let them be. We don't fight our thoughts. We watch them. We don't battle our feelings. We meet them like old friends. This meeting, this willingness to stay close to what is the gateway to peace. It's not always easy. Our minds have been trained to chase, to calculate, to anticipate. Sometimes, even in moments of rest, a part of us stays on guard. What if something goes wrong? What if we forget something important? What if? But the Buddhist path encourages us to sit with the what is, not the what if. Right now, are you safe? Right now, can you breathe? Right now, can you soften? Even just a little. Peace begins not by solving every problem, but by stepping out of the cycle of reactivity. It begins by recognizing that the present moment is enough. Not perfect, not always pleasant, but enough. One of the simplest teachings of the Buddha was to breathe and know you are breathing. That's it. Inhale and know, this is an in-breath. Exhale and know, this is an out-breath. This kind of presence doesn't require special equipment or hours of free time. It just asks for your attention. And when attention is anchored in the now, a certain ease naturally arises. In that ease, the mind can rest. Even if the body is busy, even if there's noise around you, a part of you can stay grounded in stillness. This is the quiet revolution of mindfulness. It doesn't erase difficulty, but it changes your relationship with it. Imagine two people in the same storm. One is caught in the wind spinning, fighting the rain. The other stands under shelter listening, watching, unmoved. The storm is the same, but their experience is different. Peace, in this analogy, is the shelter, and it's built not from bricks, but from presence, compassion, and non-resistance. So when we say peace begins now, we don't mean in some grand, transformative way. We mean in the most subtle, gentle sense. A softening of the jaw, a longer exhale, a loosening of the grip on the moment. You don't have to make anything happen. You just have to stop running from what already is. The beauty of this path is that every moment becomes an invitation. Waiting in line, breathe. Frustrated with someone, pause. Walking to your car, feel your feet. These small gestures, repeated with care, accumulate. They create space in the mind, and in that space, peace grows. Over time, you begin to trust it. You begin to trust that stillness isn't dangerous, that silence doesn't need to be filled, that rest isn't laziness, it's wisdom. Because when you're present, truly present, you begin to see clearly. You notice the patterns of your mind, you observe the sensations in your body, and you meet them all with kindness, not because they're always easy, but because they're yours. They are part of your life, unfolding in real time. This is where peace is found, not on a retreat or in some distant future, but here in the way you show up to your own experience. in the way you honor what's true, without needing it to be anything else. So the next time you find yourself rushing towards some imagined state of peace, stop. Breathe, look around, feel your body, hear the sounds. This moment is not in your way, it is the way. Peace begins now, not because everything is resolved, but because you have returned to this breath, to this body, to this life. And from here, everything becomes possible. The story of the Buddha's awakening is more than a historical account. It is, in many ways, a symbolic map, one that shows the journey from confusion to clarity, from struggle to peace. And at the heart of that journey is presence. It begins with a man named Siddhartha Gautama, a prince who had everything the world could offer: comfort, luxury, protection. Yet something stirred within him, a question, a discomfort, a curiosity about the deeper currents of life. He saw aging, illness, death. He saw suffering, and he couldn't unsee it. So he left his palace and everything he knew to find out what lay beyond illusion. He tried extremes, deprivation, self-mortification, intense ascetic practices. He hoped that by breaking the body, he might free the mind. But after years of this, he was near death and no closer to awakening. Then came the turning point. As he sat beneath the Bodhi tree, he remembered a time in childhood when he had spontaneously entered a deep, serene state of awareness, just sitting beneath a rose apple tree, watching the world, effortlessly present. It wasn't forced, it wasn't painful, it was natural. That memory guided him to a profound insight. Perhaps awakening didn't come from pushing away pleasure or clinging to pain, but from walking the middle path. Neither indulgence nor denial, just balance, just awareness, just being. And so he sat, with determination, yes, but also with gentleness. He watched his breath, he watched his thoughts. He allowed every fear, every doubt, every temptation to arise without giving in to any of them. He remained still, present, unmoved. As the night deepened, so did his insight. He saw the truth of suffering. He saw its causes: craving, attachment, ignorance. And he saw the path to its end. He awakened not to a new doctrine, but to the clear, direct truth of existence, that everything is impermanent, that everything is interdependent, and that peace is found not by escaping life, but by understanding it. This is the essence of the middle way, a path that honors presence over extremes, a path that invites you to stay close to experience, not to run from it or drown in it. It's a path of curiosity, compassion, and clarity. In the context of mindful rest, this story teaches us something vital. Rest isn't found in pushing ourselves to spiritual heights or withdrawing completely from the world. Rest is found in the middle, in the quiet balance between doing and being, in the space where we meet ourselves exactly as we are. Consider this: how often do we swing between over-effort and disengagement? We either strive, filling every moment with productivity, or we collapse, numbing out with distractions. But the Buddha's awakening invites another way, a steady presence that neither clings nor rejects, a wakeful ease. This middle way is not neutral or dull. It's alive, it's radiant, and it's deeply restful, because it frees us from the exhausting pendulum of craving and aversion. When we sit with what is, without the need to fix or flee, something inside begins to settle. The mind, like muddy water, begins to clear. We often think awakening is a grand, mystical event, but in the Buddhist tradition, it's also described in the simplest of terms: waking up to what's here, seeing clearly, responding wisely. And this starts with presence, with a willingness to stay with your breath, with your thoughts, with your body, not to judge, but to witness. That witnessing, that awareness, is the ground of freedom. The Buddha's journey shows us that peace isn't passive. It requires courage, the courage to be still, the courage to look within, the courage to stay with discomfort without turning away. And this courage is available to all of us, not just to monks or sages, but to anyone willing to listen to their own life. When you take a moment to pause, to breathe, to feel, without reaching for something to change the experience. You are practicing the middle way. You are walking the same path. You are joining a lineage of those who choose presence over escape. And you don't need a Bodhi tree. You don't need a distant mountain. You just need your breath, your body, your intention to be here, right now. Siddhartha's story reminds us that truth doesn't need to be chased across oceans. It can be found in silence, in stillness, in the ground beneath your feet, and the air moving in and out of your lungs. His awakening was a return, not to the palace, but to what was always available: direct experience, mindful attention, peace. So next time you're caught in striving or collapse, remember the middle way, remember the balance, and remember that peace doesn't require perfection. It only requires presence. In the earliest days after the Buddha's awakening, he gathered around him a small group of seekers, monks and lay followers, people who were, like him, searching for peace that didn't come and go with the weather of the world. These were the beginnings of the Sangha, the community of practitioners. And as they followed the path laid out by the Buddha, they lived simply, often in forests, caves, or quiet villages. Their teachings weren't found in books or carved in stone. They were passed from one heart to another, shaped by practice, and spoken from direct experience. One of the most significant teachings offered by the Buddha to this early Sangha was the Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse on the foundations of mindfulness. It was, and still is, a complete guide to awakening through presence. In this teaching, the Buddha laid out how to attend to the body, feelings, the state of mind, and mental objects. But what's striking isn't just the clarity of the method, it's the tone of intimacy, the encouragement to know deeply, to observe without turning away, to rest in the simple, immediate truth of your own experience. These teachings were not abstract philosophies. They were practical tools, rooted in real life, in the breath, in walking, in eating, in silence. Imagine a monk walking barefoot through a mango grove in the early morning, the dew still clinging to the leaves, the sun just beginning to rise. Every step a practice, every breath a reminder. The world is quiet, and the mind reflects that stillness, not because it is empty, but because it is full of awareness. There's a story from this time, a teaching passed down about a young monk who was assigned to live in a remote forest hermitage. At first, he struggled. The isolation, the sounds of animals at night, the unpredictability of life in the jungle, all of it stirred fear in his heart. But he remembered the Buddha's words, "Be mindful, O monks, of the body, of feelings, of mind, of mental phenomena." And so he practiced. He walked slowly under the trees. He sat in stillness and watched his breath. He noticed the fear, not pushing it away, not feeding it, but simply allowing it to rise and pass like clouds across the sky. Day by day, his heart settled. He came to see that the forest was not threatening. It was simply alive, that his thoughts were not enemies. They were simply habits. And in that simple grove, with no distractions and nothing to cling to, he found a kind of rest he had never known before. A rest that didn't depend on silence or comfort, but on presence. This kind of peace is what the early teachings point to. Not peace as the absence of noise, but peace as the absence of resistance. The monks weren't asked to escape life, but to live it fully, mindfully. Whether they were gathering food, patching robes, or tending to illness, their task was the same: return to the moment. Feel the ground. Notice the breath. Rest in awareness. One of the practices often taught to the early Sangha was mindfulness of death, not in a morbid or fearful way, but as a reminder of impermanence. They were encouraged to reflect, this breath could be my last, not to create anxiety, but to deepen appreciation, to make the present moment vivid, precious. If this were your last sip of tea, how would it taste? If this were your last walk through a garden, what would you notice? When we attend to life with this kind of presence, everything becomes a doorway to peace, even the challenges, especially the challenges. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha expands on this with the 16 steps of mindfulness of breathing, a practice given not just to novices, but to seasoned practitioners. These steps guide the meditator through calming the body, gladdening the mind, concentrating the heart, and ultimately, seeing reality clearly. And at every stage, the breath is the anchor. Not the idea of the breath, but the living experience of it. Cool at the nostrils, expanding in the chest, releasing from the belly. This is where the mind learns to rest. The early Sankhya also learned that mindfulness isn't limited to meditation. It's carried into every act. Eating was done in silence, with gratitude. Speaking was done with intention, guided by the precepts. Not just moral guidelines, but supports for peace. When you refrain from harsh speech, from gossip, from dishonesty, what remains is clarity, gentleness, connection. Even relationships were treated as practice. If a monk grew irritated with a companion, he was invited to examine that irritation, to see where it arose, how it felt, whether it had roots in pride, fear, desire. The goal wasn't to suppress emotion, but to understand it, and in that understanding, release it. Through these practices, the early Sankhya began to taste a kind of freedom. Not a dramatic, world-shaking transformation, but a steady unfolding, a softening, a lightening of the heart. And through this, they discovered that rest isn't passive. It's active receptivity. It's saying yes to the moment without conditions. This is the legacy they passed on, not through temples or dogma, but through a way of being, a way of seeing, a way of walking in the world that is grounded, alert, and deeply at peace. And it's available to us even now, even here. There is an old story told in the early Buddhist tradition, a story passed down not because of its drama, but because of its deep simplicity. It speaks of a quiet monk who wandered through the countryside and came upon a mango grove. The grove stretched wide, trees heavy with fruit, their canopies casting deep, cool shadows on the ground. He was tired, dusty from travel, and the heat of the day had begun to settle on his shoulders. So he stepped into the grove, not with urgency, but with a soft appreciation for the stillness there. He didn't pluck the fruit, not right away. He simply sat beneath one of the trees and breathed. The ground was firm beneath him. The leaves above rustled just enough to break the silence. And in that moment, the monk did nothing more than sit, feel the breath moving in and out of his lungs, and rest. This wasn't sleep, nor was it idleness. It was full, conscious rest. Rest that didn't come from escape, but from presence. Rest that allowed the body to soften and the mind to quiet. Rest that made space for insight. As the afternoon unfolded, the monk observed the mangoes, some still green, some ripening in golden hues, some already fallen. He watched birds land and take flight, ants crossing leaves, the arc of the sunlight shifting gently. There was no hurry, no task, only awareness. That night, after meditating under the stars, he spoke with another monk about the experience. He said, "When I stopped searching for understanding, understanding arrived. When I stopped trying to rest, I discovered I was already held. There was nothing missing in that grove, only the need to notice." This story, though small, holds a teaching. It reminds us that mindfulness isn't something we apply only in moments of crisis or during formal sitting practice. It's something we carry into the everyday, into our pauses, our waiting, our ordinary surroundings. The mango grove is not a rare or magical place. It lives in the spaces we tend to rush past. The quiet corners of our day, the seconds before we speak, the moments we stop to breathe. These are the groves we often overlook, and yet they offer us the same invitation to settle, to witness, to come home to this moment. There's a gentle power in simplicity, in choosing not to distract ourselves, not to push forward, but instead to let the world arrive just as it is. when we give attention to the mundane, to the breeze against our face, the sound of footsteps, the weight of our body, we begin to see that nothing is truly ordinary. Every detail shimmers when held in presence. This monk didn't need to analyze the mango tree to find peace beneath it. He didn't need to debate or calculate or strive. He simply allowed his attention to soften. He rested in what was already here. So often we miss this kind of rest because we assume we have to earn it, that we need the right setting, the right time, the right mood. But presence doesn't depend on those things. In fact, it asks us to release them, to show up exactly as we are, wherever we are, and simply notice. The monk didn't chase an ideal moment. He let the moment become ideal through his stillness. And this is something you can do too. Right now, wherever you are, pause. Let the sounds around you come into focus. Feel the weight of your body, the breath in your chest, the tension or softness in your face. Let your attention spread gently across the landscape of your experience. This is your grove. And in this grove, you don't need to achieve anything. You don't need to become enlightened or perfectly calm. You don't need to empty your mind. You only need to arrive, to see clearly, to rest. Mindful rest isn't passive. It's alive with awareness. It's intimate. And like the monk beneath the mango tree, you might find that the more you soften into this kind of presence, the more clarity emerges. Answers come not from force, but from quiet. Peace comes not from retreat, but from return. There is so much beauty that goes unnoticed, not because it is hidden, but because we are too busy moving past it. The monk in the mango grove teaches us that the world is not lacking. It is abundant. The stillness is not empty. It is full. He teaches us that mindful rest is not something we add to our lives. It's what remains when we stop removing ourselves from life. So the next time you pass through a quiet place, whether it's a park bench, a hallway, a sunlit window, pause. Let that be your mango grove. Let yourself sit, breathe, and simply be. You might discover that peace has been waiting there all along. In every tradition of mindfulness, breath is central. It is the thread that ties awareness to the body, the moment, and the mind. The breath is always with us, always available, asking nothing in return. And in the teachings of the Buddha, the breath is not just a function of survival. It is a doorway to deep understanding. This is the heart of Anapanasati, the mindfulness of breathing, a practice that grounds us, centers us, and teaches us how to rest in what is real. When we begin to observe the breath, we might notice how quickly the mind wants to wander. Thoughts rise about the past, the future, even about the breath itself. But the practice is not to fight those thoughts. It is to return again and again to the simple, natural rhythm of inhalation and exhalation. The breath becomes a mirror. It reflects the state of the body, the mind, the heart. Shallow, tense breathing might reveal stress or worry. Slow, deep breathing might signal calm. Whatever we find, we meet it not with judgment, but with interest. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha lays out 16 steps of breath meditation. It begins with awareness, knowing when you breathe in and knowing when you breathe out. This sounds simple, even obvious, but try it and you'll see how quickly attention slips. So we bring it back, not with force, but with kindness. In breath, out breath, that's all. And already something begins to change. A quieting, a settling, a shift from doing to being. As we continue, the next steps involve feeling the whole body with the breath, noticing how breath moves through the body, how the body responds. We don't manipulate it, we simply observe. Then we begin to calm the bodily formations, softening, relaxing, letting go of tension we might not have known we were holding. Shoulders drop, the belly softens, the face relaxes, and with this softening, the mind becomes more spacious. This progression mirrors how presence unfolds. First we notice, then we open, then we rest. The breath guides us inward, but it also connects us outward. When we are present with our breath, we are more likely to be present with others. We listen more fully. We respond more wisely. We meet the world not from reactivity, but from steadiness. Breath, in its essence, is impermanent. Each one comes and goes just like thoughts, emotions, and sensations. When we observe this rise and fall, this coming and going, we begin to see the truth of all things. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. And this realization, rather than being frightening, can be freeing. We stop clinging. We stop resisting. We begin to trust the flow. There's a quiet humility in watching the breath. It reminds us we are not in control of everything. We can't force the breath to stay, to leave, to be what it's not. We can only meet it, one moment at a time. And through that meeting, we learn the art of surrender, not giving up, but giving in, to reality, to presence, to life itself. Breathing is not just a function, it's a rhythm, a relationship. It carries us through the day, through joy and sorrow, through effort and rest. And when we bring mindfulness to it, it becomes a source of deep rest. Not the kind of rest that dulls or numbs, but the kind that sharpens awareness and softens resistance. Think of how often the breath is with you. When you're nervous, you hold it. When you're relaxed, it flows. When you're asleep, it continues without effort. The breath is not just a background process, it's a teacher, always there, always offering an opportunity to return. Return to now. Return to body. Return to peace. In mindfulness practice, we don't try to change the breath. We simply notice it. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it shallow or deep? And in that noticing, the breath often begins to change on its own. It lengthens. It deepens. But not because we force it, because we've made space for it to settle. This is what rest really means in the context of mindfulness. Not the absence of activity, but the presence of awareness. You could be walking, washing dishes, caring for a child, and still be resting because your attention is steady and kind. So when the mind is scattered, when the world feels overwhelming, come back. Find your breath. Feel the inhale as it arrives, the exhale as it leaves. No story needed, no expectation, just this breath, just this moment. And if your mind wanders 100 times, bring it back 101, not as a chore but as a gift. Each breath is a fresh beginning, a new chance to arrive, a quiet celebration of being alive. This is the practice of Anapanasati, a practice that leads not only to calm, but to insight, to the kind of understanding that changes how we live, how we listen, how we rest. It's not complicated, but it is profound. So breathe and let that be enough. There's an old tale of a woman who lived alone at the edge of a small village. She was well past her youth, her hair silvered by time, her hands worn smooth by years of daily work. Most in the village saw her as quiet, perhaps even ordinary. But those who watched closely noticed something different. She moved with calm. She spoke with warmth, and she carried herself as if nothing in the world could shake her. Every morning before dawn, she would sit by a small clay lamp in her home, not to pray, not to plan, not to busy herself, but simply to breathe, to sit in silence, to be present. Her neighbors often wondered what she was doing, alone and still while others rushed to begin their day. One evening, a young girl from the village visited her, curious and full of questions. She asked, "Why do you sit so still every morning? Don't you get bored? Don't you want to do something?" The old woman smiled. "I am doing something," she said gently. "I am learning from the flame." The girl looked puzzled. "But it's just a little lamp. What could it teach you?" The woman leaned in and spoke softly. "Watch closely. The flame dances, but it never leaves its center. Even when the wind moves through the cracks in the walls, it flickers, but it returns. It never loses its root. That's what the breath teaches me, too." She went on to explain that many years before, she had been filled with worry. Her days were scattered, her mind restless. She searched for peace in things, possessions, praised certainty, but it always slipped through her fingers. Then one day, a wandering monk had passed through the village and spoken to her briefly of the breath. He said, "Return to it, and you will return to yourself." At first, it seemed too simple to be true, but she tried. Every morning, just a few minutes, watching her breath. At first, her thoughts raced. Her body fidgeted. She doubted the practice again and again. But something inside her softened each time she stayed. A little more space appeared between her thoughts. A little more steadiness entered her days. And over time, something unexpected happened. The things that used to disturb her, the noise of others, the worries about the future, the regrets of the past, they no longer gripped her so tightly. She became like the flame, responsive, not reactive, moved but not lost, present and at peace. The girl listened quietly, watching the little lamp dance in the dim room. The woman reached over and gently cupped her hand near the flame. "When you live like this," she said, "your rest no longer depends on sleep. It doesn't depend on things being quiet or easy. You learn to rest in the breath, in your own being." That simple moment stayed with the girl for years. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Because it showed her a kind of peace she hadn't known was possible. And this story, though humble, carries a teaching just as powerful as any sutra. It reminds us that wisdom doesn't always arrive with fanfare. It often comes in quiet, flickering moments, in the breath, in silence, in the willingness to stay. The woman's experience with the flame is a metaphor for breath awareness itself. Just as the flame moves but doesn't break, the breath teaches us how to stay rooted. Life stirs us, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, but the breath is always there to bring us back, like the flame. It draws us toward stillness through movement, toward balance through rhythm. And there's something profoundly democratic about the breath. You don't need money to access it. You don't need a title. You don't need a teacher sitting across from you. You already have everything you need. Right now, in this moment, inhale, exhale. That is the whole teaching, and it is enough. Through stories like this one, we come to understand that mindfulness is not just a concept. It is a lived experience. It grows slowly, like a tree taking root. But with time, it offers deep shade. You don't need to become someone else to find rest. You don't need to chase the perfect practice. You simply need to return. Return to the breath. Return to your own presence. Again and again. Like the woman and her lamp, let yourself sit, watch, breathe. Let the breath remind you how to rest. Not by escaping life, but by meeting it fully, calmly, with open eyes and a steady heart. It's a question we all face at some point. How do we bring awareness into the ordinary moments of life? How do we stay connected to mindfulness when the day fills up with responsibilities, distractions, and the pull of business? The answer lies not in adding more to our to-do list, but in seeing what's already here differently. Mindfulness doesn't require a retreat or special cushion. It asks us to pay attention to the small, overlooked spaces where presence can thrive. Picture yourself walking across your kitchen. You're not rushing. You're not thinking 5 steps ahead. You feel the floor beneath your feet, the weight of your body shifting, the texture of air on your skin. Each footfall is a moment of arrival. You don't need to change anything. Just let your awareness touch the act of walking. This too is mindfulness. This too is rest. When we practice breath awareness in daily life, we're not trying to make each moment a meditation. We're simply turning the light of attention toward what we're already doing. Washing dishes, driving, waiting in line. Each of these can become a chance to return to the breath, a soft anchor, a quiet friend in the flow of life. Many people begin to notice that mindfulness isn't about being calm all the time. It's not about never being distracted. It's about returning again and again. When you're overwhelmed, when you're bored, when you're joyful, return. Feel the breath, notice the body, and allow the moment to be what it is. In Buddhist teachings, this kind of moment-to-moment practice is called continuous mindfulness. It's what monks and lay practitioners alike are encouraged to develop, not just in meditation halls, but in the market, at the well, while cooking rice. The breath becomes a thread, weaving through the day, gently tying us back to presence. One of the most accessible ways to bring this practice into everyday life is through walking meditation. You don't need a forest path or a designated track. You can walk slowly through your home, down a hallway, across a room. The point isn't the destination, it's the attention, lifting the foot, placing it down, feeling the contact with the ground, letting the breath match the pace of movement. This can be done in silence or even as you carry out small tasks. The mind settles not because the world has stopped, but because you have started to listen. Another doorway to mindfulness is eating. How often do we eat while distracted? Reading, scrolling, planning the next thing. But what happens when we pause? When we actually taste what's on the spoon? The texture, the temperature, the aroma. Even one mindful bite can bring us back. It's not about eating slowly or perfectly. It's about truly receiving the experience, being here for it. And then there's mindful listening, being present not just with ourselves, but with others. Listening without rushing to respond, without rehearsing what we'll say next. Just hearing, letting the other person's words be received fully, like rain falling on still water. This kind of listening nourishes relationships. It makes space, and it rests the mind, because we're not caught in reactivity. We're grounded in presence. You can also bring breath awareness into transitions. Moving from one task to the next, we often carry tension or urgency with us. But a single breath, a conscious, intentional breath, can reset the nervous system. Before opening a door, before sending a message, before starting a meeting, inhale, exhale, return. These small pauses are like clearing stones from a path. They make walking through your day feel smoother, steadier. Even in stressful moments, the breath can be a sanctuary. When your heart is racing, when irritation rises, when doubt creeps in, pause. Feel the breath in your belly. Lengthen the exhale. Let the breath hold you for just a moment. It doesn't have to fix anything. It just reminds you, you are here. You are not lost. The beauty of daily breath awareness is that it meets us where we are. We don't have to escape our lives to practice. We just have to open to them, to let the rhythm of breathing walk beside us. Steady, reliable, quietly transformative. And the more we do this, the more we begin to see that mindfulness isn't a practice we do. It's a way we live. The breath becomes our thread back to presence, and presence becomes the ground on which we stand, no matter what the day brings. So wherever you are right now, take a moment, inhale, feel that breath arrive, exhale, let it go. You're not behind, you're not late, you're here, and that is enough. There's a story told of a monk who lived deep in the hills during the rainy season retreat. His hut was nestled among tall trees, far from the village, surrounded by the rustle of leaves and the song of birds. He spoke very little, interacted only when needed, and spent most of his days in quiet contemplation. One evening, a storm rolled in, heavy winds shaking the branches, thunder cracking across the sky. Rain hammering down with such force, it seemed to pound straight into the earth. Inside the hut, a young novice trembled. It was his first season in the forest, and every roar of thunder seemed to echo his own rising fear. The walls creaked, the trees groaned. The world outside felt like it might tear itself apart, but the elder monk remained still. He sat cross-legged, spine straight, his eyes half closed, breathing in, breathing out. When the storm was at its loudest, he said softly, "The storm is outside. Let's not bring it in." The novice looked at him, startled. "How can you stay so calm?" he asked. "Aren't you afraid?" The old monk opened his eyes and nodded slowly. Yes, I feel the fear, but I don't fight it. I let it be. Just like the wind, just like the rain. And that, in a single sentence, was the teaching. When life brings chaos, when the storm rages, we have a choice. We can fight it, try to control it, or panic in its presence. Or we can do something quieter, more powerful. We can be with it. We can let it move around us without becoming it. That monk didn't repress his fear. He acknowledged it, felt it. But he didn't let it take over his mind. He found peace, not because there was no storm, but because he chose not to react. Mindful rest isn't found by making the world quiet. It's found by not letting the noise run our minds. This story echoes the core teaching of equanimity in Buddhist practice. A balanced mind that sees clearly, feels deeply, but does not get pulled into every passing wave. It doesn't mean we feel nothing. It means we don't drown in what we feel. Think about your own life. The storms may not come with thunder and rain, but they do come. Unexpected news, a sharp word from someone close, a missed opportunity, a difficult choice. These are our storms. And when they arrive, the mind wants to react. It tightens, spins, prepares for battle. But mindfulness offers another way. Instead of bracing, we breathe. Instead of fleeing, we feel. And something profound happens in that space. The moment you choose to stay, not out of resignation, but out of presence, you reclaim your peace. You learn that your peace doesn't depend on external stillness. It lives in your ability to be with what is. This is the essence of mindful rest in emotional storms. It's not about fixing, nor is it about pretending nothing is wrong. It's about creating room, letting fear be fear, letting sadness be sadness, letting anger rise and fall like thunder rolling over hills. And through it all, you breathe. One breath in, one breath out. Each breath like a lighthouse in the dark, steady, reliable, a reminder that you're still here. The elder monk didn't control the weather, but he had trained his mind not to be ruled by it. That's the path we walk when we practice mindfulness in challenge. We sit in the middle of the storm, not untouched, but unshaken. And this practice extends beyond storms of emotion. It meets the small frustrations of daily life, the spilled coffee, the traffic jam, the forgotten errand. These, too, are moments where reactivity wants to leap in. But when you pause, when you breathe instead of clench, you create a choice, a doorway into peace. So let the world do what it does. Let the wind howl if it must. You are not here to control it. You are here to witness it with steady breath, open heart, and grounded mind. And if fear arises, as it did for the novice, meet it like the old monk did, with awareness, with compassion, and with the understanding that you are not your fear. You are the one who sees it, the one who holds it gently. In the end, when the storm passed and the sky cleared, the novice asked the elder how he had learned to rest in such chaos. The monk smiled and pointed to the ground. By sitting, by breathing, by not running away, you can do the same. You don't need a forest hut or a robe, just a willingness to stay, a breath to return to, and a moment of stillness, even if everything around you is moving. This is how the storm passes without shaking the roots. This is how rest becomes real, even in the middle of the wind. There's a certain kind of mindfulness that arises not in motion, but in stillness, a kind that emerges not from activity, but from quiet. And within that stillness, silence becomes more than the absence of sound. It becomes a living, breathing presence of its own. In the Buddhist tradition, silence is not a void. It's a doorway. It opens us to the subtle, to the overlooked, to the deeply real. Imagine sitting beneath a tree at dawn. No phone, no conversation, no music in your ears. Just the hush before the day begins. You hear the wind, the birds, the distant rustle of leaves. And in that stillness, something inside you softens. Not because you've made anything happen, but because you've stopped trying to make anything happen. You've allowed space for rest to return on its own. This is the power of silence. It creates room for awareness to bloom. In Buddhist monastic life, silence is not rare. It's a way of honoring the sacred in every moment. Monks often observe periods of noble silence, especially during retreats. It's not enforced quiet. It's chosen stillness, a discipline that opens the heart. Because when we stop speaking, we start listening, not just to others, but to ourselves, to the breath, to the body, to the mind in its raw, unfiltered form. At first, silence can feel uncomfortable. We're used to filling it, with noise, with conversation, with thinking. But if you stay with it long enough, something shifts. You begin to hear the quieter voices within, the ones that whisper beneath your usual chatter. You begin to notice how often you speak just to avoid discomfort, or how often you listen only to reply, not to understand. Silence brings this into focus. It slows you down, and in slowing down, it reveals what is often missed. There's an old story of a student who asked a revered master, "What is the highest teaching?" The master said nothing. He simply looked at the student, eyes soft and steady. The student grew uncomfortable, then frustrated. But the master remained silent. Later, when the student asked again, the master spoke just 5 words. "Did you hear the silence?" That was the teaching. Sometimes, the most profound answers are not spoken, they are felt. And silence makes space for those feelings to rise. But silence isn't just external. There's also the inner silence, the quiet mind, the heart at rest. This kind of silence is harder to find because our thoughts are always moving. But through practice, we can cultivate it, not by shutting the mind down, but by changing how we relate to it. When we watch our thoughts without grasping, without pushing them away, we create inner space. That space is silence, spacious, kind, and restful. Even in conversation, silence plays its part. Think of the pauses between words, the breath before you respond. These moments carry weight. They shape how we connect. In silence, we allow what was said to land. We allow emotions to be felt. We make room for truth to emerge. In the modern world, silence is rare. We are constantly surrounded by stimulation, voices, notifications, background music, endless commentary. But rest is born in the spaces between. And silence is one of those spaces. A deep well where the mind can drink. You don't have to go on a long retreat to experience this. You can begin with just a few moments each day. Mute the television. Step outside without headphones. Wake up and sit quietly before the day begins. Let the silence be more than the absence of sound. Let it be a presence, something you return to like a friend. And if silence feels awkward at first, that's okay. It only means you're not used to it yet. Like stepping into a dark room, it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. But once they do, you begin to see things you never noticed before. Inattentions, restless habits, and beneath those, clarity. The more we welcome silence, the more we come to trust it. Not as emptiness, but as a fullness that doesn't shout. A fullness that whispers. You don't have to fill every moment. You don't have to prove, explain, or perform. You can simply be. So pause, right now, just for a breath. Let the silence between these words linger. Let your awareness settle into that pause. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, just this. This is where rest lives, in the quiet, in the space, in the silence that holds everything without needing to say anything. In our modern lives, where movement rarely stops and noise rarely fades, solitude has become something rare. And yet, solitude is not loneliness. It is spaciousness. It is the act of being alone without being apart. It is not isolation, it is intimacy with yourself. In the Buddhist path, solitude is not just valued, it is essential. Not for every moment of life, but for cultivating clarity. When the world quiets, the self becomes more visible. Thoughts arise more sharply. Emotions echo more clearly. And through this clear seeing, we begin to understand the patterns that shape our lives. Solitude allows rest. that is deeper than physical stillness. It's a kind of letting go, not of others, but of distraction. In solitude, the mind settles differently. There is something profoundly human about our emotions. They rise, often uninvited, and shape how we see the world, how we speak, how we act. They can lift us or weigh us down, energize us or exhaust us. And sometimes, especially when they're difficult, they seem to take over everything. But what if they didn't have to? What if we could meet our emotions, not with fear or judgment, but with presence? In the teachings of mindfulness, emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. They are visitors. Temporary, often mysterious, and always offering something to learn. But we must be willing to pause, to open the door, let them in, and sit with them. Not to indulge them, not to fight them, just to witness them. There's a poem by Rumi called The Guest House that beautifully captures this teaching. It invites us to treat each emotion, joy, sorrow, meanness, even despair, as an unexpected guest. The instruction isn't to judge them or slam the door in their face, but to welcome them, to meet each feeling with the curiosity and respect you might offer someone who's come a long way to knock at your door. This perspective changes everything. Anger is no longer a failure. Sadness is no longer a flaw. They are simply experiences, energies moving through us. And in the space of mindfulness, we learn to hold them gently. Let's take anger, for example. When anger arises, the body reacts. The heart pounds, the muscles tense, the breath shortens. If we're not aware, we might lash out. But with awareness, something else becomes possible. We notice the sensation of heat, we name it. Anger is here. That naming is powerful. It creates distance. It says, I see you, anger. You're part of this moment, but you are not all of me. And then we stay, we breathe, we feel. Maybe we place a hand on the chest or belly. We acknowledge the hurt that lives underneath the anger, the unmet need, the fear of being disrespected or unseen. This is mindful rest with emotion, not pushing it away, not being overwhelmed by it, but holding space for it to move, to teach, to pass. The same is true for sadness. Often we try to distract ourselves from it, to numb or rush past it, but sadness asks to be felt. When we meet it with mindfulness, we create a safe container. We feel the heaviness in the chest. We notice the urge to withdraw, and instead of judging it, we offer kindness, like placing a warm blanket over a shivering body. Tara Brach, a teacher of mindfulness and compassion, speaks of the two wings of awareness, wisdom and compassion. When we bring both to our emotions, something beautiful happens. We don't just survive our feelings, we grow from them, we soften, we open. We begin to see that emotions aren't permanent states, they are waves, and we can learn to surf them. Resting with emotions also means allowing space for joy. Often we rush past joy without really letting it land. A smile, a compliment, a moment of connection. It arrives, and we're already on to the next thing. But mindfulness invites us to savor, to breathe it in, to let happiness fill the body like sunlight through a window. This, too, is rest, not just from pain, but into fullness. And sometimes, emotions are tangled. We feel grief and gratitude at once, love mixed with fear. These moments can be confusing, but mindfulness doesn't ask us to sort it all out. It asks us to stay, to breathe, to let the inner weather pass through, cloud by cloud. One of the most important things to remember is this: you are not your emotions. You are the space in which they arise. You are the awareness that sees them. And that awareness is never broken, never overwhelmed, never too small. So the next time a strong emotion comes, pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath. Say to yourself gently, this too is part of the path. Stay with it, name it, breathe through it, and let yourself rest, not in resistance, but in presence. Even in the middle of an emotional storm, you can rest, not because the feelings are gone, but because you're no longer fighting them. You're making peace with the moment as it is. This is the practice. Not perfection, not control, but compassionate attention, breath by breath. Moment by moment, you are allowed to feel everything, and you are allowed to rest in the middle of it all. Silence and solitude offer us a space to rest. But there's another dimension of mindful rest that is just as vital. How we speak, how we act, how we relate. In the middle of daily life, where words are exchanged and responsibilities shared, the body remains our constant companion, and through it, we are invited into one of the most powerful gateways to peace, mindfulness of the body. The body is not just a vehicle for our thoughts. It's a living, breathing part of our experience, deeply intelligent and always present. It holds tension, yes, but also memory, intuition, and a capacity for grounding that the mind alone cannot provide. While the mind jumps from future to past, the body stays rooted in now. When the Buddha taught mindfulness, he began with the body, not the abstract or theoretical, but the direct, the felt sense of being alive. He encouraged his followers to notice the breath as it moved in the body, the position of the limbs, the sensations of walking, standing, lying down, to feel the contact of feet with earth, the rise and fall of the belly, the temperature of the air on the skin. Why start there? Because when we come into the body, we come out of our stories. We stop chasing and resisting and simply feel. This is the ground of mindful rest, the place where tension softens not through force, but through attention. Think of how often we're disconnected from the body. We sit for hours without noticing our posture. We carry stress in our shoulders, clench our jaws, and hardly register it. But when we tune in, even briefly, something shifts. That moment of awareness brings us back. It tells the nervous system, you're safe, you can soften. Imagine lying down and doing a simple body scan, beginning at the crown of the head, moving slowly downward, noticing each area in turn. The forehead, the eyes, the jaw, the neck and shoulders, all the way to the toes. Not changing anything, just noticing, just breathing into each part. This practice doesn't just relax the body, it reclaims it. It reminds us that this form, this flesh, is not a problem to be fixed. It's a home to be inhabited. Sometimes, pain or discomfort will arise as we turn inward. Old injuries, chronic tension. But even then, awareness can change the quality of experience. We may not erase the pain, but we meet it differently. We learn to breathe with it, rather than brace against it. We learn that rest is not always the absence of pain, but the presence of compassion. The body also offers rest through movement, gentle, conscious movement, walking meditation, stretching, slow, mindful yoga. These practices awaken the body's intelligence. They bring energy where it was stuck. They reconnect us to rhythm, to flow. And there's wisdom in noticing how we hold ourselves. Do we move through the day with strain or grace? Are we rushing? Are we gripping? Are we ignoring the signals that say, pause, soften, breathe? Mindfulness of the body is also a doorway into self-kindness. We so often judge our appearance, our weight, our aging skin, our limitations. But the body is not here to be judged. It's here to support us, to guide us, to teach us what presence feels like in muscle and bone. The simple act of placing a hand on your heart or on your belly as you breathe can be grounding. It tells the body, I'm here with you, I'm listening. That gesture alone can open a sense of peace, of connection that no thought could create. In Buddhist practice, monks are taught to contemplate the body not just as form, but as nature, impermanent, changing, not self. This contemplation isn't meant to be morbid or detached. It's meant to liberate us from clinging, to help us see that this body too is part of the unfolding flow, and in that seeing we rest. We stop fighting gravity. We stop resisting change. We begin to trust the natural rhythm of things. So often we look for rest outside ourselves, but the body offers it freely again and again, in a breath, in a stretch, in stillness, in motion. When we come home to the body, we come home to now. And in that now, peace lives. So wherever you are, take a moment. Feel your body. Not in your thoughts, but in sensation. The texture of your clothes, the warmth or coolness of your skin, the pull of gravity anchoring you to the earth. This is your ground. This is your refuge. Rest isn't far away. It's already here, waiting in your breath, in your spine, in the space beneath your ribs. All you have to do is return. There was once a revered teacher who, toward the end of his life, grew frail. His body, once strong from years of walking, sitting, and teaching, now moved slowly, supported by a cane. Still his presence remained luminous, serene, steady, and deeply kind. His students, who had long admired his wisdom, began to notice that his teachings had grown quieter. More emotions arise like weather, sometimes calm like a clear sky, sometimes stormy, fierce, and loud. But what happens when those storms show up in the middle of our everyday lives? When grief walks in while we're trying to get through the day, or anxiety hums under the surface during a quiet evening, how do we rest, truly rest, when the heart is heavy? One of the most compassionate teachings in Buddhism is that we don't need to push our emotions away to find peace. We don't need to fix sadness before we can rest. In fact, the willingness to rest with emotion, to breathe beside it, to sit quietly in its company, is often the very thing that allows the heart to soften and heal. There's a story from the Buddhist texts of a mother named Kisa Gotami. Her young child had died, and in her grief, she wandered from house to house, begging for medicine to bring her son back. People turned her away, confused and heartbroken for her. Finally, someone directed her to the Buddha. When she arrived, wild with sorrow, he listened patiently. Then he told her he could give her what she asked for. But first, she needed to bring him a mustard seed from a home that had never known death. She went from door to door, and everywhere she turned, she heard stories of loss. A mother, a brother, a friend, a child. Again and again, she met the truth: suffering touches everyone. And slowly, through this simple but powerful journey, something shifted in her. Her pain didn't disappear, but her heart began to open, not just to her own grief, but to the shared grief of others. She returned to the Buddha, her eyes clear, and asked to be taught the path of understanding. This story isn't about forgetting pain. It's about allowing pain to become part of a greater whole. It reminds us that rest with emotion doesn't mean numbing. It means widening, creating space, seeing that we are not alone. In mindfulness practice, this often begins with naming, acknowledging what's here. You might sit quietly, place a hand on your heart, and say to yourself, "This is sadness," or "This is fear," or even "This is anger." No story, no blame, just recognition. And then stay, not forever, not forcefully, just with the breath, just with curiosity. You may notice the emotions shift, rising, falling, changing shape. You may feel it stay steady but with less grip. You might cry or feel still. There's no right response. The practice is simply presence. Sometimes it helps to imagine the emotion as a guest. You open the door and let it sit beside you. You don't have to serve it tea or entertain it. You just let it be. You watch how long it stays, and you notice it always leaves eventually. And when it does, you're still here, grounded, breathing, whole. For many people, this is a radical idea. That rest can include sadness. That peace isn't the absence of feeling, but the capacity to be with feeling without being consumed by it. This is the heart of mindful rest with emotion, welcoming the full range of human experience with openness and care. It doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean wallowing. It means allowing emotion to be part of the sacred rhythm of life, like rain feeding the soil or wind shaping the trees. And when emotions feel too big to face alone, mindfulness also teaches us the value of connection, of speaking honestly to someone who can hold our truth, of letting another person witness our sorrow or fear. This, too, is rest, to be seen, to be held, to be heard. So in your own life, when emotions arise, whether sharp like a flash of anger or slow like a wave of grief, pause, breathe. Feel the ground beneath you. Place a hand on your body. Be kind. You are not failing because you feel. You are alive. And your willingness to stay is an act of courage. You can rest even in sorrow. You can breathe even in fear. You can be present even when things are hard. And slowly, breath by breath, you create space. You become the calm around the storm, the sky that holds the weather, the silence beneath the sound. This is mindful rest with emotion. It's not perfect, it's not always easy, but it is deeply human. And in that humanity there is peace. Sometimes rest doesn't come from doing less, but from hearing more. Not from silencing the world, but from listening more deeply to what's already speaking. And one of the most honest teachers we have, always speaking without words, is silence itself. In Buddhist monastic tradition, silence is more than just the absence of speech. It is a discipline, a mirror, and a kind of sacred space. It creates the room for something else to arise. Awareness that is unshaped by commentary. Presence that isn't dressed up in language. And this presence can be deeply restful. Not because it is empty, but because it is full of life that doesn't need to be explained. There's a story told in the Zen tradition of a young student who asked his teacher, "What is the ultimate truth?" The teacher looked at him for a long time and said nothing. At first, the student was confused, then frustrated. But the teacher simply bowed and returned to sweeping the floor. And in that gesture, the student understood. Truth is not always in words. Sometimes, it is in the directness of action. The sound of the broom on stone, the quiet rhythm of breath. In the absence of speech, we begin to hear more. Birds calling in the distance, wind moving through trees, the subtle hum of life around us, even the sound of our own heartbeat. These moments can touch us in ways that no explanation ever could. They remind us that rest isn't about escaping sensation, but about softening into it, being available to it just as it is. Silence can also reveal what is usually hidden. When we are no longer distracted by speaking or responding, we begin to notice our own patterns. The way thoughts rise like waves, one after another, the way emotion stirs in the body, and we learn to be with that inner world, not to analyze or fix it, but to witness it, to sit beside it like a quiet friend. In mindfulness retreats, extended silence is a common and powerful practice. Days without speaking can feel daunting at first, but then something shifts. Time slows, awareness deepens. We start to notice how often we speak to fill space, to avoid discomfort, or to reinforce identity. And in the absence of that, a different kind of self emerges, one that is less concerned with performing and more interested in simply being. You don't need a retreat to touch this. You can find it in your own life. A few minutes in the morning before the world wakes up. A walk without headphones. Turning off the radio while driving. Even just pausing before you speak to feel the silence between thoughts. This isn't about withdrawal. It's about refinement. We begin to see that silence is not a blank, but a canvas. It holds what we are often too busy to notice. And when we rest into it, it offers a kind of healing, a clarity that is free from commentary, a peace that is free from effort. But silence can also bring up discomfort. It can feel raw, vulnerable. That's okay. That's part of the path. When we stop filling every moment with words or noise, the mind may try to rush in with commentary, old stories, judgments. But if we stay with the breath, with the body, with the silence itself, something deeper reveals itself. The spaciousness that was always there, the presence that doesn't need to prove anything. And as we become more comfortable in silence, we begin to bring that stillness into the spaces between speech, into conversations, into the pauses before decisions, into the moments before action. This is the integration, the weaving of inner quiet into outer life. In Buddhism, there's a phrase, noble silence. It refers not only to abstaining from speech, but to the dignity and care that arises when we are fully present, without needing to speak. It's the silence of someone who listens completely, who sees without judgment, who offers their presence like an open field. When we practice noble silence, we offer that gift to ourselves, and in doing so, we remember that we don't always have to explain, to perform, to respond. We can simply be. We can let go of the need to narrate every moment and trust the moment to speak for itself. So wherever you are, take a breath. Let the sounds around you settle into your awareness. Notice the silence that exists even within sound, the silence behind the breath, beneath the thoughts. Let it hold you. You don't need to say anything right now. You don't need to do anything. Just listen, just rest, just be. In the rhythm of our everyday lives, where activity often fills every available moment, the idea of creating deliberate solitude may seem foreign. But solitude isn't about being alone in a dramatic or romantic sense. It's about making space. Space to hear your own thoughts without interruption. Space to be with yourself without the constant presence of someone else's expectations. And most importantly, space to rest in your own presence, free from performance. Modern life constantly nudges us toward connection. Messages, notifications, updates, meetings, the endless call of input. But presence cannot always bloom in a crowded field. Sometimes the mind needs open sky, a clearing, a pause. That's where solitude begins, not as a withdrawal from the world, but as a turning gently inward. Even a few minutes of solitude can become sacred if met with awareness. Stepping outside before the day begins, feeling the air against your skin, noticing the way light filters through the leaves, or sitting quietly with a cup of tea, not scrolling or reading, but just being, noticing the warmth of the mug, the scent, the soft silence that arises when you aren't reaching for anything. In Buddhist tradition, solitude has long been honored as a gateway to clarity. The Buddha himself spent many periods in seclusion, not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly. Monastics, too, will often enter solitary retreat, where the only voices heard are birds, wind, rain, and the breath itself. This is not an escape, it's a return. But you don't need a mountain or a forest hut. Solitude can be woven into modern life in quiet, sustainable ways. A walk without your phone, a meal eaten without distraction, a few breaths between meetings where you do nothing but feel your body in the chair and listen to your own presence. At first, solitude may feel like absence, but if you stay with it, it reveals a different kind of fullness, a richness that doesn't come from entertainment, but from the depth of your own attention. You start to realize that solitude isn't about isolation, it's about intimacy, with the moment, with yourself, with the quiet truths that arise when nothing else is speaking. And like all practices, solitude requires intention. If we're not mindful, even time alone becomes filled. We listen to podcasts, answer emails, scroll endlessly. There's nothing wrong with these things, but they don't offer the kind of rest the heart longs for. To truly rest in solitude means turning toward what's here, rather than away from it. It means letting yourself be seen, not by others, but by your own clear awareness. In solitude, you may meet parts of yourself you've ignored, thoughts you've been avoiding, feelings you didn't know were waiting. That's okay. Let them rise. Let them pass. Just like clouds across a wide sky, you don't need to fix anything. You don't need to figure it all out. Just stay present, breathe, listen. This is the deep rest that solitude makes possible. A rest not defined by inactivity, but by non-distraction, by wholeness, by the freedom of not needing to be anything for anyone, even for yourself. And over time, something soft and strong begins to emerge. A sense of trust in your own company, a quiet confidence that you can meet whatever arises because you've made space for it, because you've learned to rest with it, not to escape it, but to simply allow. In solitude, you become your own companion, your own refuge, and from that refuge, you begin to move through the world not with urgency, but with steadiness, not with exhaustion, but with clarity. So if you can, take a moment, close your eyes, feel your breath, notice the quiet. Even if there's noise outside, notice the stillness inside, the space that doesn't need to be filled, the presence that doesn't need to perform. Let yourself rest there, just for a moment, just for now. Because solitude isn't loneliness, it's presence, it's awareness. It's the peace of coming home. Bringing mindfulness into modern life doesn't mean we have to escape our routines. It means reshaping the way we relate to them. We don't need to leave our jobs, abandon our relationships, or seek a distant temple in order to find rest. Rest is not elsewhere. It's not hidden in some perfect setting. It lives inside the way we meet this moment, whatever it contains. In today's world, we are constantly pulled toward movement, toward speed, toward multitasking, toward endless doing. But rest doesn't have to be the absence of doing. It can be the quality with which we do, a presence that transforms even the busiest moments into opportunities for ease and connection. Take work, for example. Whether you spend your days at a desk, on your feet, in conversation, or behind a screen, each task can become a meditation. Before opening an email, pause. Notice your breath. Feel your fingers on the keyboard. Let yourself arrive. Then proceed. Not rushed, not scattered, but centered. This shift may sound small, but it changes everything. It turns the habit of reacting into the practice of responding, and it gives your nervous system a moment to reset. That single breath before action is not wasted time. It's a doorway to rest, and technology, so often blamed for distraction, can also be used to support mindfulness. You might set gentle reminders on your phone to pause and breathe. Use calming backgrounds. Silence non-essential notifications. Choose sounds that bring you back instead of pulling you away. It's not about rejecting technology. It's about reclaiming how we use it. Even walking between tasks becomes part of the path. Walking from one room to another, from desk to kitchen, from parking lot to building. These are transitions we often overlook. But if you bring your attention to the sensation of your feet on the ground, the rhythm of your movement, the feeling of the air against your face, suddenly, the walk is not a gap in your day. It's a moment of return, and there's power in routines. The things you do every day, brushing your teeth, making coffee, washing your hands, can become anchors of presence. Let each one be an invitation. Feel the texture, notice the temperature, hear the sounds. These small acts are not barriers to peace. They are the fabric of your life. Woven with attention, they become sacred. Mindfulness also meets us in how we relate to others. Listening is an act of presence. When someone speaks, give them your full attention, not just to their words, but to their tone, their pauses, their emotion. This kind of listening is rare, and it's healing. It creates a field of rest for both of you, where there is no need to rush to respond, no need to defend, just space to be. You can also build intentional pauses into your day, a few minutes before lunch, a moment after finishing a task, one breath before picking up the phone. These are the spaces where rest takes root. You don't need to carve out an hour of silence. You need only to remember that peace is found between the lines. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do in a busy day is stop. Stand still. Look out a window. Let the sunlight touch your face. Listen to the breeze or the distant hum of life. Let your body exhale. Let your mind soften. In that pause, everything recalibrates. And yes, there will still be deadlines. There will be traffic tension, unexpected calls. But the way you meet them can change. Not by pushing harder, but by softening your grip. You don't need to fix every moment. You just need to be present for it. The more often you return to the now, the more familiar it becomes, and the more you begin to trust that you can rest even in motion. even in conversation, even in effort. This is the path of mindful integration, not something separate from life, but woven into it, into the work, the commute, the conversation, the ordinary day. So wherever you are, on your way to something, in the middle of something, just finishing something, pause. Feel the weight of your body. Listen to the sound of the world around you. You are already here, and this moment is enough. Rest at night doesn't begin when the lights go out. It begins long before that, sometimes in the quiet way you let go of the day, sometimes in the tender way you prepare your body to soften. Mindful rest before sleep is not about falling asleep faster, although that may happen. It's about treating the hours before sleep as sacred ground, a gentle transition, a closing ritual of awareness and care. So often, the hours leading into night are filled with stimulation. Screens glowing, thoughts racing, our bodies still tense from the demands of the day. We might carry conversations with us into bed, unfinished to-do lists, worries for tomorrow. And in the rush to sleep, we forget to actually rest. Mindfulness invites a different rhythm. It begins with slowing down, not just in action but in energy, giving yourself permission to move more deliberately. To create space, this might look like dimming the lights earlier, speaking more softly, choosing activities that soothe instead of stimulate, reading instead of scrolling, gentle music, silence, stillness, and within that stillness, the breath, always the breath. You might lie down and place one hand on your belly, the other on your chest. Feel the breath rising and falling, not trying to control it, just noticing. Let each exhale be an invitation, a quiet reminder you don't have to hold the day anymore. Let it go, not because it doesn't matter, but because it has passed. And this moment, this rest, is what matters now. Some people find it helpful to scan the body, part by part, beginning at the feet, moving upward, noticing sensation, letting go of tension, not rushing, just being present. Ankles, calves, knees, hips, breathing into each space, softening with each breath. Others may find stillness in reflecting on the day, not in judgment, but in gentle acknowledgement. What moments brought warmth? What felt heavy? Is there anything to release, forgive, or simply thank? You might even whisper to yourself quietly, as if tucking the day into bed. It's okay to rest now. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is expected. Gratitude can also be a bridge to rest, not forced, not performative, just honest. A few simple recognitions, a breath that carried you, a moment of laughter, a warm meal, a touch, a quiet moment. Gratitude softens the mind. It draws attention away from striving and into presence. And if the mind wanders, which it will, if thoughts keep rising or tension remains, that's not failure, that's human. Just return to the breath, return to the body, even saying gently, thinking, and then breathing, like stepping from one room into another. This practice doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require silence or a completely calm mind. What it requires is care, the intention to meet the end of the day with tenderness rather than rush, with presence rather than avoidance. And if you wake in the night, as many do, you can return to this same ground. Instead of resisting wakefulness, notice the feel of the covers, the air in the room, the weight of your body. Breathe, let the night be what it is. Sometimes rest is found not in falling asleep, but in simply not fighting wakefulness. Let the night be a teacher. Let it show you how to trust the dark, how to let go of control, how to surrender to rhythm. We often speak of falling asleep, and in many ways, it is a falling, a release, a descent into softness. And mindfulness is the hand that guides you gently down, not pushing, not dragging, just walking beside you, step by step. So tonight, as the day fades, allow yourself this gift. Turn towards sleep not as a goal to be achieved, but as a friend you're meeting. Let yourself arrive slowly, breath by breath, moment by moment, and know that even in those final quiet minutes, eyes closed, body still, You are not doing nothing. You are resting in the deepest way. You are letting the world go and letting yourself return. In the countryside, far from the cities and the noise of the market, there lived a farmer known not for his wealth or harvest, but for something quieter, his ease. His neighbors would often say that nothing seemed to rattle him. Not a failed crop, not a broken tool, not even the wild storms that swept across the valley each spring. He worked the land with steady hands, spoke softly, and always paused before answering a question, as if listening for something deeper than words. One evening, after a long day of tending his fields, the farmer sat on his porch as the sun dipped below the hills. A traveler passing through stopped to ask for directions, and then, seeing the calm in the farmer's eyes, asked a different question. How do you stay so peaceful? Isn't life full of things to worry about? The farmer smiled and replied, I plant what I can, tend what I must, and rest when the sun goes down. The soil doesn't grow faster when I worry. This story, simple as it is, holds a profound truth. Worry often arrives in the quiet, in the stillness of evening, when there's nothing left to do. It creeps in like fog, filling the mind with what ifs and unfinished business. But the farmer teaches us that worry isn't resolved by more thinking. It's resolved by presence, by trust, by letting go of what doesn't need to be carried through the night. The Buddha often taught that worry is a form of restlessness, one of the 5 hindrances to peace. It arises from our desire to control what we cannot predict. But mindfulness offers us another way, not to control, but to release, to meet the future not with resistance, but with calm attention to now. And now is always where rest begins. So as night approaches, ask yourself, what am I still carrying? What am I holding on to that doesn't need to come with me into sleep? Maybe it's a conversation, a decision, a list of things undone. Maybe it's simply the vague hum of not enough time, not enough progress, not enough rest. In this moment, invite yourself to set it down. Just for tonight, you can pick it up again in the morning if needed, but for now, let it rest so you can rest. Sometimes it helps to imagine your thoughts as leaves floating on water. Each worry, each question, a single leaf. And you standing at the edge, watching them drift past. Not chasing, not collecting, just letting them go. You might say to yourself gently, not now, not in resistance, but in kindness. Not now. Right now is for rest. The farmer's wisdom lives in this. He didn't rest because everything was resolved. He rested because it was time. He trusted the rhythm of nature, the rise and fall, the sowing and the harvesting, the waiting and the watching. He trusted that some things would grow and others would not, and he allowed peace to live in that uncertainty. That's what mindful rest invites us into, an agreement with reality, a quiet yes to the imperfection of it all. You don't need to fix the world before sleep. You don't need to solve every problem before you can exhale. You only need to return to the breath, the body, the moment. And if thoughts arise, because they will, notice them, label them, planning, remembering, worrying, and then gently guide yourself back to the warmth of the blanket, the breath in your chest, the weight of your body sinking into the bed. Let the night carry you like the earth carries seeds, quietly, patiently, without rush. The farmer knew what the traveler did not, that peace is not earned by controlling the world. It is received by releasing it, by trusting that the sun will rise, that the seasons will turn, that rest is not the end of something, but the beginning. So as you close your eyes tonight, remember the soil, the steady rhythm of breath, the weight of letting go. You don't have to know how it will all unfold. You only need to stop holding it so tightly. Let yourself fall into rest like a seed into earth. Nothing forced, nothing rushed, just peace growing in the silence. Let's begin here, with nothing to fix, nothing to improve. Let go of the striving mind, the analyzing mind, the waiting mind. Rest, real rest, begins not with the body, but with an inner pause. A soft turning away from resistance, a simple arriving. Feel your breath, not in a special way, just how it is, perhaps shallow, perhaps deep, cool as it enters, warm as it leaves. No need to adjust it, just feel the movement, the natural rhythm that has carried you since the moment you were born. Now notice the space around the breath, the stillness between each inhale and exhale, the tiny moment of suspension, that quiet, that pause. Let your attention rest there for a few seconds. Breathe in, pause. Let those pauses become soft landings. There's nothing to achieve. You're not meditating to get somewhere. You're not becoming better. You're not reaching for peace as a goal. You're simply remembering what's already here. The present moment, the body, the breath. Let your shoulders drop just a little more. Unclench your jaw. Let your hands rest. If thoughts come, which they will, let them drift in like clouds. Let them stay for a breath, then gently float out again. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to solve them. You can just watch them pass, like watching leaves move across a pond. Notice the sensation of your body wherever it meets the ground, the chair or the bed beneath you, the weight of your hips, the curve of your back, the contact of your hands resting, maybe on your lap, maybe beside you. Let gravity hold you. You don't need to hold yourself together right now. The earth is doing that for you. There is a kind of rest that doesn't come from sleeping, but from releasing control, releasing effort, releasing the idea that you need to be anything more than what you are right now, and what you are right now is enough. Breathe into that. This is not a technique. It's a remembering, a return to being, to feeling, to allowing. The simplest practices are sometimes the most radical because they interrupt the habit of constant doing. You may feel restless, that's okay. You may feel calm, that's okay too. You may feel like nothing is happening, that's more than okay. That's the practice, to stay, to breathe, to let yourself be held by the moment without needing it to entertain you. Notice your face now, the muscles around the eyes, the skin on the forehead. Is there a tightness there? Let it melt, not with force, but with attention. Sometimes just noticing is enough to let the body soften. Now turn inward, gently, and notice your heart. Not in a poetic way, but literally. That place in the center of your chest. What lives there right now? Tension, openness, numbness, warmth. Whatever it is, welcome it like a quiet visitor. You don't need to do anything with it. Just offer presence. If emotion comes, let it come. Let it move through you like wind through an open window. No doors slammed shut, no walls put up. Just open space for whatever needs to rise and pass. Breathe again. Feel the whole body breathe. Feel how each part of you, even the parts that ache, are included in this breath. Nothing is left out. All of you belongs here. Now, let the breath become a little slower. No pushing, just inviting. A longer exhale, a softer inhale, and with each breath, imagine you're settling deeper, not downward, but inward, toward your own stillness. There's nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. You have permission to rest, not just physically, but spiritually. You can stop trying to be someone, stop trying to get somewhere. For this one breath, and then the next, and then the next, you can just be. Feel that. The gentle unfolding of what's already here. This is presence. This is peace. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are here. And here is enough. The rhythm of life, if we really stop to listen, has a natural ebb and flow, a pulse, a movement that rises and falls like the breath itself. In this flow, rest isn't a pause in the journey. It's part of the journey, an essential movement in the dance. And just as we inhale to gather energy, we exhale to release it. Rest is our exhale, our return, but we often resist this. We feel pulled to keep going, to stay productive, to remain alert. It feels as though stopping means falling behind, or worse, becoming irrelevant. The world rewards activity, not stillness. But in that striving, we lose something vital: the ability to return to ourselves, to reconnect with what matters most, to be. There's a teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh who reminds us, sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. In the same way, sometimes rest comes because we feel peaceful, but more often, peace arrives because we allow ourselves to rest, because we stop chasing. Think about how water clears when it's undisturbed. A pond becomes still not by force, but through non-interference. In the same way, when we let the body settle, the mind settles too. It doesn't happen instantly, but gradually, with kindness, with patience. So what does it mean to truly rest? It's not just lying down or doing less. True rest means we stop resisting what is, we drop the fight, we release the grip, we stop trying to be elsewhere, and in that allowing, the nervous system softens, the mind loosens, the heart expands. There's a deep nourishment in this kind of rest, an inner restoration that has nothing to do with sleep and everything to do with surrender. Surrender not as giving up, but as giving in to the moment, to the breath, to the body's wisdom. And rest doesn't require perfect conditions. It doesn't demand silence or solitude or ideal lighting. Rest can happen in traffic, in the middle of a conversation, in the waiting room, in the grocery store. Because rest is not about what's happening outside. It's about how we meet what's happening inside. We can bring a resting heart into a busy day, into our relationships, into decision-making. When we pause before reacting, breathe before speaking, wait before jumping to fix, we are resting, we are giving space. And in that space, clarity grows. So let's take a breath together. Right here, right now, inhale slowly, and exhale even slower. Let this breath be your invitation, your gentle reminder that you don't need to hold it all. Not in this moment. Let your shoulders soften. Let your eyes rest. Let your spine lengthen. Let your belly loosen. You are allowed to release. Imagine for a moment that every part of you, every cell, has been doing its job all day, carrying tension, processing emotion, holding you upright. And now every part of you gets to breathe, to rest, to be. Let that awareness ripple outward, like waves across a calm lake, soothing, gentle, persistent. And notice, in this moment, you're not striving, you're not fixing, you're simply being. And that is enough. Let this be your practice. Let it be small but regular. Not another task, but a return. A returning again and again to what is simple, what is real, what is here. That is the gift of rest. Not a reward for finishing, but a right that's always available. You don't have to earn it. You just have to receive it. In the quiet moments, when the noise settles and the world softens its grip, something within us begins to stir. Not the usual movement of thought or task, but something older, something steady. It's a remembering, a return to presence. This presence is not passive. It is awake, clear, intimate. And it is from this presence that true rest begins to blossom. Buddhist teachings remind us that the present moment is not just a slice of time. It is the doorway to freedom. Not freedom from life, but freedom in life. When we land fully here, even for a breath, we stop running, we stop seeking, and we find, sometimes to our surprise, that what we were chasing was never far away. The mind loves to wander. It wants to know, to plan, to solve. But the body, it always lives here, in this breath, in this place. So we anchor in the body, in the rhythm of breath, the contact with the ground, the pulse beneath the skin. These are not small things. They are the sacred ground of now. Rest, then, becomes a practice of union, bringing the mind back to the body, gently, kindly, again and again. Not through force, not through perfection, but through attention. That's all it takes. Loving, patient attention. You might feel the breath now, how it moves through you like a tide, how it asks nothing but awareness. Let it flow without control. Let it be spacious. Let it carry you. And as you rest in this breath, see what else is here. Maybe the sensation of your feet on the floor, the weight of your hands resting in your lap, the soft sounds in the room or beyond the window. This is the texture of now. This is the soil of presence. Sometimes we resist this stillness, not because it's uncomfortable, but because it's unfamiliar. We're used to doing, to achieving, to fixing. Stillness can feel too quiet, too simple, but if we stay, if we breathe, something shifts. The simplicity becomes richness. The quiet becomes a sanctuary. We learn to trust this space, to trust that nothing needs to happen for this moment to be whole. And when emotions arise, because they will, we don't need to push them away. We don't need to judge them. Let joy arise. Let sorrow arise. Let boredom ease, frustration, peace, all of it move like weather across the sky. Let your awareness be that sky, vast, holding everything. In the heart of the present moment, we discover an ease that doesn't depend on external calm. It comes from within, from being so fully present with what is, that we no longer resist it. It's not about liking everything. It's about being with everything, just as it is, just as we are. That's the kind of rest that heals. That kind of rest doesn't require a special cushion or setting. It only requires willingness to be here, to feel, to breathe, to let go of the idea that we need to be elsewhere. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." These words are more than a teaching. They are an invitation to stop the search, to settle into being. So take a breath, let it be full, let it be yours. You don't need to escape this moment. You don't need to improve it. You don't even need to understand it. Just rest in it. Let yourself be here completely, and notice as you do that nothing is missing. In a forest monastery in Thailand, a monk once shared a story during a quiet evening gathering. He spoke of a visitor who came seeking advice. The visitor had a restless mind, a racing heart, and an overwhelming sense of anxiety. He asked the monk, "How do I calm my thoughts? How do I make my mind peaceful?" The monk smiled gently and pointed to a nearby pond. "Come," he said. They walked to the pond, where the water shimmered under the moonlight. The monk picked up a stick and stirred the water until it rippled and swirled. "Now," he said, "look into the pond and see your reflection." The visitor looked, but the image was broken, distorted by the movement. "This is your mind when you try too hard to fix it," the monk said, "always stirring, always seeking control. Now watch." He set the stick down. The water, left alone, slowly began to settle. The ripples softened, the surface stilled, and soon the moon's reflection returned, clear, whole, undisturbed. "This is how peace returns," the monk said, "not by force, but by stillness." This teaching isn't reserved for monks. It applies to each of us in the midst of our daily lives. Mind, like water, becomes clear when allowed to be still, not through grasping or struggling, but through gentle, patient awareness. So often, we think rest will come once we solve everything, once we make all the right decisions, once we've organized the chaos, completed the tasks, resolved the tension. But peace doesn't wait for perfection, it waits for permission. And sometimes that permission is simply this: to stop, to be still, to breathe, even when the mind is busy, even when emotions rise. Stillness is possible, not as a dramatic silence, but as a steady presence. Try it now. Feel the breath. Notice where the body touches the surface beneath you. Hear the sounds around you, without naming, without analyzing, just sound. Let your awareness widen. Let the moment be as it is. If thoughts come, let them. If feelings stir, welcome them gently. And then return, not with resistance, but with trust. Trust that clarity returns on its own when we stop stirring the pond. We don't need to empty the mind. We only need to stop fighting it. Stillness is not a blank space. It is alive, vibrant, whole, and within it, we discover a kind of rest that isn't passive. It's deeply alert, like the forest just before dawn, still, but full of life. When we practice resting in this way, we begin to understand something subtle. Peace doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means we are no longer pulled in every direction. We are centered, grounded, aware. It's not about controlling the mind, but relating to it differently, watching with compassion rather than judgment, letting go rather than holding on. So the next time you feel restless, remember the pond. Remember that stillness doesn't arrive through effort. It comes through letting go, through not adding more, through simply being. Let the thoughts come and go like birds across the sky. Let your breath anchor you gently. Let your body be the earth you rest upon. And in that quiet, in that space between thoughts, notice what remains: a deep presence, a quiet knowing, a peace that has always been here, just waiting to be seen. Sometimes rest looks like doing nothing, but often it's more subtle. It's a softening, a shift in how we meet the moment. In Buddhist practice, rest is not just a break from effort. It's a quality of being, a way of inhabiting experience with ease, even in the midst of activity. We're not trying to escape life, but to live it more fully, without tension. You may be washing the dishes. The water runs warm over your hands. The scent of soap rises in the air. In the past, this might have been a chore, a task to finish quickly. But when you meet it with mindfulness, it changes. You feel the sensations. You notice the weight of each plate. You hear the clink of glass. And suddenly, even in this small act, there is peace. This kind of rest is not passive, it's engaged. But it is unburdened, free from rushing, free from the mental stories that pull you elsewhere. Think of the Buddha seated under the Bodhi tree, not running, not avoiding, not striving, just sitting, awake, present. The world still moved around him, but within him, stillness. Not because everything was perfect, but because he was no longer at war with what was. That's what we're learning, too. How to stop the inner struggle, how to make space inside ourselves. And often that begins with just one breath. Take that breath now. Let it come and go like a wave. Let the breath remind you you are here. You don't need to push. You don't need to prove. You can rest in this moment, even as life moves. There's a story from Zen tradition about a student who asked the master, "What is the path to peace?" The master replied, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The student, puzzled, said, "But isn't that what everyone does?" The master smiled and said, "No. When they eat, their minds are on 1,000 things. When they sleep, they dream of tomorrow." That is not eating, that is not sleeping. To rest is to truly be where you are. To give your full presence to this body, this breath, this act, whatever it may be. And when you forget, as you will, return. Gently, without judgment. Each return is a moment of freedom, a letting go of the restless striving. Even walking becomes a meditation. You feel the soles of your feet meeting the ground. You notice the sway of your body. You feel the air brushing against your skin. And in that simple act, you are whole. This is the heart of the practice. Not to find some grand escape, but to befriend your life exactly as it is. To allow rest not just in stillness, but in motion. To soften your grip on the moment. To let each breath be enough. So if you're listening now, wondering how to rest when the world feels heavy, remember this: you begin by allowing yourself to stop, to breathe, to feel. And in that pause, in that breath, in that gentle noticing, you begin again. You come home. And home, it turns out, was never far away. There is a certain kind of quiet that lives deep in the forest. It's not the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. A quiet that holds the rustle of leaves, the soft call of a bird, the breath of wind. It's the kind of silence that doesn't demand anything from you. It simply welcomes you in. This is the kind of quiet we seek inside ourselves. A silence that doesn't mean emptiness or escape, but space. Spaciousness of heart, spaciousness of mind. A place where all things can exist without needing to be changed. In Buddhism, we sometimes speak of this as the noble silence, not just not speaking, but quieting the inner commentary, the endless narration, letting experience rise and fall without clinging to it, without the need to name or sort or judge. It's in this silence that rest deepens, because without that inner noise, the body softens, the breath deepens, and the mind, so used to chasing after meaning, begins to feel held by the simplicity of being. Let yourself feel that now, noticing the space between sounds, the pause between breaths, the softness beneath your thoughts. And when thoughts come, which they always do, let them pass through like footsteps in the forest. You hear them, you feel their presence, but you don't have to follow them. You don't have to leave the stillness to chase them. Even one moment of this kind of silence can be a refuge, a pause that resets the nervous system, a breath that reminds the body it's safe to release, safe to rest. In monasteries, silence is often kept in the early hours of the day and again in the evenings, not as a rule to obey, but as a gift, a time to return to the self without distraction. And even if you don't live in a monastery, you can create small moments of noble silence in your own life. Perhaps you begin your day without words, or end your evening without screens. Maybe you take a walk without music or podcasts, letting the sounds of the world be your only soundtrack. And in that silence, listen, not just to the world, but to yourself. Not the voice that critiques or analyzes, but the quieter one, the one that simply notices, the one that says, "Here I am, breathing, alive." Rest is not always a shutting down. Sometimes it's a waking up to this very moment just as it is. Let your breath remind you. Let your body speak in sensation rather than language. Let the silence wrap around you like a warm blanket. No explanations, no stories, just this breath, just this stillness. And if emotion rises in that silence, let it come, not to drown in it, but to feel it move, like wind through trees, like waves across a lake. Nothing held, nothing pushed away. This is the great kindness of silence. It doesn't ask you to perform. It invites you to simply be. Let that be enough now. No more effort, no more reaching, just breath, just presence, just peace. There's an old teaching from the Zen tradition that says, when you walk, just walk. When you sit, just sit. But whatever you do, don't wobble. At first, it sounds simple, too simple perhaps, but the wisdom within it is profound. It's an invitation to wholehearted presence, to rest not just in stillness, but in doing one thing at a time, fully, with clarity, with care. So often we live in the wobble, one foot in the past, one foot in the future, half present in the moment, but also tangled in thought, drifting through memory, planning what comes next. The mind fragments, the body tenses, and rest becomes impossible, not because we're moving, but because we're divided. Mindfulness, then, is not just about slowing down, it's about integrity of attention, about being where you are with what you're doing, fully. Even if that thing is small, if you're drinking tea, feel the warmth of the cup, the aroma, the texture of each sip. Let the act of drinking be enough. Let it be complete. When you walk, feel the ground beneath you. Notice how your body moves, how your arms swing, how the air touches your skin. Don't walk to get somewhere, just walk to walk. Even lying down becomes different when you're fully there. Not scrolling, not reviewing the day, just lying, just resting, letting the bed hold you, letting the body unwind. In these moments, rest is no longer a pause from life. It becomes a way of living, a way of being that doesn't rely on escape or distraction, a restfulness woven into presence. The Buddha once said, "Just as a tree with firm roots is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." And the roots he spoke of, those are attention, grounded awareness, a mind that's not scattered, not chasing, but centered. This is where we draw our strength. This is where rest grows strong. Try it now. Feel the support beneath your body. Feel the rise and fall of the breath. You're not trying to get anywhere. You're already here. Let this be enough. If the mind wanders, gently guide it back. Not with harshness, not with judgment, but with warmth, with kindness, with the same care you might offer a friend who has become lost. This way, you say. Come back, you're safe. And as you return, again and again, you begin to feel a kind of inner alignment. The wobble quiets, the noise fades, and what's left is peace, not because everything outside you is calm, but because inside, you've remembered how to stay, one thing at a time, one breath at a time, and then the next. This is the practice, not a distant goal, not a performance, but a rich moment, a new chance to begin. And each time you begin, rest is there, waiting, offering itself freely, not asking for more than your presence. So let that be enough. Be where you are, do what you're doing, and rest in the simplicity of that. There is a moment in every breath when nothing is held, just after the exhale, before the next inhale begins. A pause, a space, a stillness. In that quiet place, we're reminded that life is not only about motion, it's also about the spaces in between, the gaps where rest lives. The breath knows this, the body knows this, and somewhere within you, you know this too. But sometimes we forget. We carry so much. We hold responsibilities, memories, expectations, even identities. The weight isn't always visible, but we feel it. In the tightness of the jaw, the heaviness behind the eyes, the ache in the shoulders. It builds quietly, slowly, and we begin to think that's just how life is. But Buddhist teachings offer another way, a middle path. Not denial, not indulgence, but balance. A way of walking through life that honors both effort and ease, both discipline and rest. That reminds us we are not machines. We are not meant to be constantly on. We are meant to breathe, to feel, to pause. The great teacher Ajahn Chah once said, if you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll know complete peace. These words are not an instruction to give everything up, but a reminder that clinging is tiring, that release is restful. Even now, as you listen, you can notice what you might be holding. Are you holding tension in your chest, a plan in your mind, an emotion in your heart? You don't have to push it away, but maybe, just maybe, you can loosen your grip. Let it breathe, let it be. And in that gentle loosening, notice how the body responds. The shoulders soften, the breath deepens, the belly relaxes. This is the wisdom of rest, not as collapse, but as clarity, not as withdrawal, but as openness, a kind of alert ease where we're not fighting what is, but flowing with it. In daily life, this might look like stepping outside for a few quiet breaths, putting down your phone for a few minutes of stillness, taking 3 conscious breaths before replying to a message, letting silence fill a conversation instead of rushing to fill the space. Small acts, but powerful. Each one a way of saying, I don't have to rush. I don't have to hold it all right now. I can rest, even here, even in the middle of things. Because rest doesn't mean absence. It means presence without strain. It means being here with kindness, with softness, with enough space inside to hold yourself just as you are. So breathe again, not for any purpose, just to feel it, just to be, and let that be the beginning of rest. Sometimes we forget that rest isn't only about stopping, it's also about feeling safe. Safety isn't only physical, it's emotional, mental, and even spiritual. And often we don't rest because, deep down, we don't feel safe enough to let go. There's a hum of anxiety beneath the surface, a sense that if we let our guard down, something will fall apart. But what if we gently challenged that belief? What if we slowly relearned that it's okay to soften? In Buddhist teachings, there's the concept of refuge, taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But refuge doesn't mean hiding. It means turning toward a trustworthy shelter, a place or a truth where we are held, where we don't need to pretend, where we're allowed to be just as we are. You can feel that kind of refuge even now, in your breath, in the support beneath your body, in the silence that wraps around this moment like a shawl. It's not a hiding place. It's a place to be real, to be whole, to be safe enough to rest. We live in a culture that values toughness, productivity, endurance, and yet the most courageous thing we might do is allow ourselves to be soft, to be tender, to be human. Not in the fragile sense, but in the full, embodied truth of it. With all its vulnerability, with all its wisdom. There's an image in many Buddhist temples, the reclining Buddha, eyes closed, one hand supporting the head, the body resting. It's a symbol of his final moments, his parinirvana, but it's also a symbol of rest as part of the path. Enlightenment doesn't require constant effort. Sometimes it asks for stillness, surrender, peace. You don't have to reach for that final peace. Just allow a little peace now. A sip, a moment, a breath. Notice what softens when you don't try to control the moment. What relaxes when you trust the ground beneath you. What opens when you let your shoulders drop, your face loosen, your mind unhook. You are not failing by resting. You are remembering. The trees rest in winter without guilt. The moon wanes without apology. The ocean ebbs without shame. This is nature's rhythm, and you are part of that rhythm. Let yourself be. You may not always feel peaceful, but you can feel the invitation to breathe, to lean into the stillness. And when you rest from that place, it's not empty. It's full of being, full of awareness, full of kindness. So ask yourself, what would it be like to rest without needing to fix anything? What would it be like to rest not because you've earned it, but because you're alive? This is your practice now. One breath, one moment, one quiet permission to be. There's a gentle truth in the teachings of mindfulness that says, nothing needs to be added. You already have what you need. The peace you seek isn't somewhere else. It's here, beneath the noise, beneath the layers of doing and fixing and trying. Rest doesn't come from adding more. It arises when we subtract, when we stop chasing and start listening. Imagine a field of tall grass waving in the wind. The wind comes and the grass bends. And when the wind passes, the grass returns to stillness, not because it resisted, but because it flowed. This is the kind of rest that mindfulness teaches. Not rigid, not forced, but resilient, responsive at ease. You don't need to fight your thoughts. You don't need to banish distraction. You only need to notice, to be the one who sees, the one who watches the waves without being pulled under. Take a moment now. Feel your breath, noticing its rhythm, noticing where it meets the body, perhaps at the tip of the nose, the chest, or deep in the belly. No need to change anything, just be with it. And now allow the body to rest in its own shape, not holding, not gripping, not correcting, just being. Let the jaw release, the hands relax, the belly soften. You don't have to hold yourself up with effort. The ground supports you. Let it. In this space, there is nothing you need to accomplish, no insight to reach for, no perfect calm to manufacture, just this moment, this breath, this being. The Buddha once taught that the mind, when trained, is like a well-tamed elephant, strong, steady, unmoved by noise. But he also reminded us that taming doesn't mean suppression, it means care, patience, repetition, a gentle returning again and again, until presence becomes our natural home. You may drift, you may forget. That's part of the practice. The beauty is in returning. Each return a quiet act of courage. Each moment of mindfulness, no matter how fleeting, a doorway back to rest. Let go of the idea that rest must be a destination. It is instead a quality of how you move through now, with softness, with presence, with enough breath, enough letting go. The world may still ask for your attention, but here for now you give it to yourself, not selfishly, not indulgently, but honestly, generously, as a human being who also needs kindness. And this kindness, it ripples. When you rest, truly rest, something softens not just in you, but in the space around you. Others feel it. The world feels it. One drop of stillness in the wide ocean of noise. So breathe again. Feel what is steady. Feel what is silent. Feel what is already enough. Let that be your refuge. Let that be your rest. In the quiet of deep rest, we begin to see more clearly. Not with the eyes, but with the heart. The surface thoughts still come and go, like ripples on a pond. But beneath them, something steadier emerges. A clarity not made of words or answers, but of presence. Of being fully here, with nothing to resist and nothing to chase. This is the heart of Buddhist practice. Not to escape life, but to meet it so fully that the boundary between self and world softens. That meeting begins with rest, not just the kind that happens on a cushion, but the kind that allows the body and mind to simply be. And yet it's not always easy. Sometimes rest brings things to the surface, feelings we've pushed away, memories we thought were buried, questions without answers. In those moments, it can be tempting to turn away, to distract, to tighten. But rest also means making space for what's true, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then, like the lotus rising from the mud, clarity comes not in spite of the murkiness, but because we learn to stay with it, to sit in the knot, knowing with compassion, to offer ourselves the same kindness we'd offer a friend. It's okay, you're safe. You don't need to figure it all out right now. This is the kind of rest that heals, not by fixing, but by holding, not by doing, but by being with what is. And when you practice this kind of rest, it starts to change your relationship with the world. You no longer need every moment to be perfect. You no longer resist imperfection. You begin to trust in the unfolding. You begin to feel the ground beneath uncertainty. Even in discomfort, there can be stillness. Even in pain, there can be peace. It's not about erasing what's hard. It's about meeting it from a place that isn't frantic, that isn't afraid, that knows how to breathe through it. Sometimes the most profound rest is a simple breath that says, I'm still here, alive, present, capable of meeting this moment, exactly as it is. In Buddhism, there is a word, sati. It means mindfulness, but more deeply, it means remembering. Remembering to come back to this body, this breath, this life, over and over. So remember now, not with force, but with gentleness. Come back to the breath. Feel the chest rise. Feel the exhale soften. Come back to your own presence. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply here. And that is more than enough. Let this moment be a place of peace. Let this breath be a blessing. Let this stillness remind you there is nothing to prove. Only this. Only now. And the quiet knowing that in this presence you are home. Rest is a doorway to connection. Not only with yourself, but with everything around you. When the mind quiets, the separation we often feel, the distance between self and world, between inner and outer, begins to soften. You begin to feel that your breath is part of a greater rhythm, that your heartbeat echoes the pulse of life itself. In Buddhist tradition, interbeing is a truth at the center of all things. Nothing exists in isolation. The tree cannot grow without the soil, the sun, the rain, and you too are woven into this web. The air you breathe was once breathed by trees. The warmth in your body comes from the sun. The kindness you offer or receive ripples far beyond what you see. And so, when you rest, not in avoidance, but in mindful presence, you touch the whole. You become part of the healing, not just for yourself, but for the world. Rest becomes an act of compassion. Can you feel that now? The sense that you're not separate, that the quiet around you holds you like a cradle, that the breath you take nourishes not just your own body, but the life around you. Even in stillness, there is relationship. Even in silence, there is communion. Let yourself be with that, without needing to name it, just sensing the warmth of connection, the spaciousness of belonging. When you listen closely in meditation, you might hear something that's not sound, a kind of hum, a pulse of presence that's always been there, waiting beneath the noise. Some call it awareness, others call it spacious mind or open heart. Whatever name you give it, it's real, and when you touch it, you begin to see everything differently. You begin to see that the pain you carry is not just yours, it's shared, that the longing you feel is universal, and that the peace you create inside yourself radiates outward, like ripples in water. This is not abstract, it's deeply personal. When you rest, you become more available to kindness, to listening, to love. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to be patient when you're rested? How compassion arises more freely when you're not tense or scattered? Rest gives you access to your full humanity. It clears the fog. It opens the heart. So in this moment, let rest be more than a break. Let it be a returning to wholeness, to the natural rhythm of being, to the truth that you are not alone. Feel your breath again. Feel the steadiness it offers. And remember, each moment of rest is also a moment of reconnection, a chance to realign with the deeper currents of life, a chance to belong just as you are. Nothing to fix, nothing to prove, just this breath, just this presence, just this quiet, sacred unfolding. Sometimes the most powerful forms of rest aren't grand or planned. They're small pauses in the day when you simply return to yourself. A slow breath before you speak, a quiet moment with your hands resting in your lap, a few seconds of stillness before turning a doorknob or sipping tea or entering a room. These moments, so ordinary they're often missed, are where presence lives. Mindfulness teaches us that the sacred isn't separate from the everyday. It's woven into the texture of ordinary life. It's in how you peel an orange, how you listen when someone speaks, how you exhale when no one is watching. In those spaces, when you're not trying to be anywhere else or anyone else, rest blooms like a wildflower, naturally, effortlessly. And it doesn't require silence. It doesn't require solitude. Even in the middle of noise or movement, you can rest inside yourself, rest in awareness, rest in breath, rest in the knowing that you are here, alive and enough. Consider how often you reach for distraction, not out of malice but out of habit. A moment of boredom arrives and the mind runs. A moment of uncertainty arises and we check a screen. This isn't wrong, it's human. But every time you catch that impulse and soften instead of react, you plant a seed of freedom. You give yourself a moment to just be, to rest in awareness rather than in reactivity. The Buddha spoke of the unshakable deliverance of the heart, not a place we escape to, but a state of being we return to, through mindfulness, through compassion, through rest. And when rest is no longer something you earn, but something you allow, everything shifts. You stop measuring your worth by output. You stop rushing through life like it's a checklist. You begin to trust the rhythm of being. The breath becomes your guide. The body becomes your home. The moment becomes your refuge. This is a deep kind of rest. Not passive but awake, not numb but tender. You become more responsive, not less, more attuned, not distant. You notice the birdsong outside the window, the temperature of the air, the expression in someone's eyes. You become available to life. There's a koan in Zen practice that asks, what is your original face before your parents were born? It's a poetic way of pointing to something timeless within you, a presence untouched by stress, roles, or the story you tell about who you are. When you rest into that presence, even briefly, you feel it. A stillness behind the thinking, a calm that doesn't come and go. That presence is not a destination, it's your original home, and no matter how far you drift, you can return. In a single breath, in a single pause, in the simple act of noticing. So take that breath now, feel its fullness, feel its release, and allow yourself, even for this one moment, to be completely at ease. Sometimes the deepest rest comes not from stopping everything, but from softening into what is already happening. You don't need to escape life in order to rest. You just need to meet it differently, with less resistance, with more gentleness, like floating instead of swimming against the current. That shift, subtle yet profound, can happen even now. Notice your breath again, not as something to control, but as something to witness, a breath rising on its own, a breath falling effortlessly. Rest lives in that rhythm. It's not the breath that tires us. It's the struggle to be elsewhere. When we stop pushing, stop pulling, and simply allow the moment to be what it is, we find peace was waiting there all along. Consider a mountain, still, grounded, unmoved by weather, and yet it doesn't resist the storm. It doesn't argue with the wind. It holds, it remains. When you rest into awareness, you become like that mountain, steady, spacious, quietly present. Thoughts may come and go. Sounds may rise and fade. Emotions might stir like leaves in the wind. But the awareness that notices them, that sees without judgment, is untouched. And that awareness is where rest is born. It's not numb, it's not detached, it's deeply intimate, fully alive, and always available. There's a beautiful story in Buddhist tradition about a monk who went to the forest to meditate. He sat for hours, seeking insight, but all he felt was restlessness. Then he began to notice the sounds around him, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, the silence between each sound. Instead of fighting distraction, he opened to it. Instead of trying to fix the moment, he met it. And in that meeting, something softened, something let go. He found stillness, not by force, but by surrender. We too can rest in that way. You don't need a forest. You don't need the perfect posture. You don't need to be free from thoughts. You only need the willingness to pause, to turn toward what is, to soften. Rest doesn't always feel serene. Sometimes it begins with discomfort, with the urge to move, to fix, to figure things out. But if you can sit gently in that discomfort, without fleeing it, you'll often find that it begins to shift, like sediment settling in water, like clouds parting to reveal the sky. The clarity was always there. You simply waited long enough for it to show itself. So let this moment be enough. Let this breath be enough. Let this body, just as it is, be enough. You don't need to be better. You don't need to be different. You just need to be here. And in being here, you remember what rest truly is: a homecoming, a return to the place within you that was never broken, never lost, never separate. The beauty of rest is that it reveals what's been with you all along. Not something new to acquire or create, but something to uncover. As the tension dissolves and the mind quiets, what remains is presence. Simple, natural, and profoundly enough. This presence doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't wait for conditions to align. It welcomes you exactly as you are. When you truly rest, even for a few moments, you step out of the cycle of becoming, of chasing the next thing, of fixing, achieving, proving. You enter a space where being is sufficient, where each breath is sacred not because of what it leads to, but because of what it is. And from this place of stillness, something beautiful begins to grow. Insight. Not the kind you read in books, but the kind that arises like light dawning in the dark. It might come as a soft knowing, or a sense of release, a recognition that you've been holding so tightly, and now you don't have to. You might begin to see how much of your suffering comes from resistance, from trying to control what can't be controlled, from wishing life were other than it is. But here in rest, you don't need to resist. You can let the waves rise and fall without needing to grasp or run. You become the ocean, not the wave. And in becoming the ocean, you discover spaciousness. There's room for joy, yes, but also for sorrow. Room for clarity and confusion. Room for peace and for pain. You're no longer at war with your experience. You're holding it like a vast sky holds the weather. This is the resting place of compassion, of true tenderness. Because when you stop rejecting parts of yourself, you naturally stop rejecting others. You see their struggle and their beauty mirrored in your own. And this is where compassion deepens, not as something you do, but as something you are. Think of a time you felt seen without judgment, held in silence, accepted fully. That feeling, that warmth, is what rest can offer you now. No fixing, no striving, just being, breathing, noticing. Let yourself feel the simplicity of this moment, the hum of aliveness in your body, the air entering, leaving, the quiet beat of your own heart. These things don't demand anything from you. They are here, offering rest with every cycle, every pulse. And if your mind wanders, which it will, just return gently, without shame. Each return is a moment of awakening, a step deeper into presence, into peace. You don't need to earn rest. You only need to allow it. Let yourself be the one who pauses, the one who listens, the one who remembers that right here, right now, you are already home. There is something sacred about ordinary life when we meet it with awareness, when rest is not reserved for the weekend or for special retreats, but is folded into the rhythm of our everyday existence. We begin to live differently. The act of washing dishes becomes a chance to feel the warmth of the water. Folding laundry becomes an invitation to breathe and slow down. Waiting at a red light is no longer a delay. It's a moment of stillness. This shift does not require dramatic change. It asks only for attention, for presence, and that presence turns the mundane into the meaningful. We start to see that rest is not separate from life. It is life, lived with care. You might begin to notice that the more you rest, the more your inner world softens. Old patterns of tension and defense begin to loosen. Where once there was clenching, there is now breath. Where once there was rushing, there is room. And into that room, wisdom enters. In Buddhist teachings, rest is often described as the cessation of suffering, but not through escape, through understanding, through seeing things clearly, through letting go of the illusion that more effort will bring peace. Sometimes, true rest comes when we finally stop searching, not because we've given up, but because we've finally arrived right here, in this moment, exactly as it is. You can practice this even in difficulty, especially in difficulty. When emotions swell, when pain arises, when the day feels heavy, can you still touch into rest? Not by pushing discomfort away, but by allowing it to exist without resistance, by being the space that holds it all. This doesn't mean you don't act, or speak up, or take care of what needs attention. It means you do so from a place of grounding, from stillness, not strain. And from that place, you become more resilient, not because you force yourself to be strong, but because you are rooted. Like a tree with deep roots can sway in the storm without breaking, your rest gives you strength. There's a saying in the Zen tradition, sitting quietly, doing nothing, spring comes, and the grass grows by itself. That is the spirit of rest, a trust that life unfolds when we stop trying to control it, a faith in the natural rhythm of being. So the next time you catch yourself caught in the momentum of the day, remember this: you can pause, you can return, again and again, as many times as it takes. And each return is not a failure, but a blessing, a moment of remembering that you don't have to chase peace. You only need to stop running from the present. Because here, in this breath, is everything you've been looking for. In a quiet room, in a busy street, in the middle of conversation, rest can meet you anywhere. It doesn't require ideal conditions. It only asks that you stop for a moment and notice that you are alive, right now, fully, undivided. And when you do, the world becomes more vivid. You start to hear the hum beneath the noise. You start to feel the texture of each passing second. This awareness is the heart of mindful rest, not sleep, not withdrawal, but a kind of radiant stillness that coexists with motion, that supports your doing with deep being. Like the silence behind music or the pause between words, it holds everything together without drawing attention to itself. And over time, This resting presence begins to transform you, not because you force it to, but because it reveals what was always true, that your value doesn't come from your accomplishments, that your peace doesn't depend on control, that your wholeness was never in question. Let yourself feel that now, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. Let the breath come and go without interference. Let the thoughts rise and fall like waves. Let the sensations in your body be exactly as they are. Tight, loose, warm, cool, heavy, light. No need to change them. No need to label them. Just feel. And in that feeling, let go of the commentary, the running story, the mental checklist. What if, just for this moment, you drop the effort to manage anything? What remains is presence. What remains is peace. There is a teaching from the Buddha that says, nothing whatsoever should be clung to as I or mine. When we hold tightly, we suffer. When we cling, we contract. But when we loosen, even just a little, we find space, we find softness, and in that softness, rest arises. Soften the belly, soften the jaw, soften the muscles around your eyes, and notice you're still here, you're still breathing. The world didn't fall apart when you let go. In fact, it became clearer. This is how mindfulness works, not by giving you something new, but by removing what obscures the truth that this moment is enough, that you are enough. That rest is not a reward for effort, it's your natural state beneath all the tension you've carried. And if you forget, it's okay. You will forget again and again. That's part of the path. But every moment offers a return. Every breath is an invitation. And every time you say yes to that invitation, you deepen your relationship with rest. So say yes now. Say yes to the breath. Say yes to the body. Say yes to being here. And let that yes echo quietly through your day, reminding you that you are already home. When you allow yourself to rest deeply, something in you begins to trust life again. Not in a naive way, but in a grounded, embodied way that says, I don't have to hold everything together all the time. I don't have to carry every burden alone. I can breathe. I can let go. And life continues. This trust is not blind. It's rooted in experience, in noticing time after time, that when you soften, the world does not collapse. When you pause, the sky does not fall. In fact, you begin to see the world more clearly. You notice the way the light filters through the trees, the quiet kindness in someone's eyes, the subtle music of silence. Rest reveals beauty that striving can't perceive. It awakens a gentler way of seeing, one that doesn't need to compare or achieve, one that's content with what is, simply because it is. And as you rest into this way of being, you start to realize this moment is not a stepping stone. It's not a waiting room. It's not a placeholder for a better time. This moment is the destination. Even in its imperfection, even in its discomfort, this moment is where life happens. It's where wisdom arises, where love breathes, where peace blooms quietly beneath the noise. So many of us live like we're on our way to something more important. But what if there's nothing more important than this? Then right here, where you are as you are, the present moment is not a means to an end. It is the end. And when you rest here fully, wholeheartedly, the ordinary becomes luminous. The small becomes sacred. Even something as simple as drinking a cup of tea can be a ceremony of gratitude. In this awareness, you are not separate from life, you are life. The breath, the body, the wind in the trees, the pause between heartbeats, the stillness beneath all movement. This is not philosophy. It's not a spiritual idea to memorize. It's a living truth you can feel in your bones when you're quiet enough to notice, when you're brave enough to stop, when you give yourself permission to be. And yes, the mind will rebel. It will say, there's more to do. You're falling behind. You can't afford to rest. But you can. You must. Not just for yourself, but for the world. Because a rested mind is clearer. A rested heart is softer. A rested soul is more compassionate. So when you rest, you don't withdraw, you return. You return to what matters, to what lasts. And slowly, gently, you begin to shape a life not driven by fear, but guided by presence. Not built on tension, but supported by spaciousness. Not fragmented by distraction, but held together by love. This is the path. And you're walking it breath by breath. Right here, right now. And as you walk this path of mindful rest, one breath at a time, you begin to understand something subtle yet profound. Rest is not just a break from doing, it is a sacred return to being. Not a luxury, not an escape, but a necessity, an inner recalibration, a rebalancing of the heart's compass. You begin to recognize that so much of your exhaustion doesn't come from what you're doing. It comes from how you're holding what you're doing. From the grip of anxiety, from the clench of perfectionism, from the relentless drive to be more, do more, prove more. But when you pause and come home to the present moment, that grip begins to loosen. You remember that you are not a machine, not a task list, not a sum of achievements. You are a living, breathing, feeling being. You have needs. You have rhythms. You are part of the natural world, not separate from it. And just like the seasons shift, you too are allowed to shift, to slow down, to fall quiet, to return to the wisdom of stillness, the nourishment of silence. In those moments of quiet awareness, you might notice something unexpected: joy. A soft, quiet joy that doesn't depend on anything going right. A joy that's not loud or dramatic, but steady and deep. The kind of joy that arises simply because you're here, alive, and aware. This joy can't be forced, but it can be allowed, and the more you rest into presence, the more space you give it to grow. Not in a burst of ecstasy, but in small, steady ripples. You'll find it in the warmth of sunlight on your face, in the sound of your own breathing, in the feeling of your feet on the ground, in the smile of a stranger, in the simple wonder of being. And when things are hard, and they will be, you'll find that rest doesn't vanish. It deepens. It becomes a refuge. Not a place to hide, but a place to gather strength, to feel held by life even in your sorrow, even in your fear. This kind of rest doesn't deny difficulty. It embraces it. It says, yes, this hurts, and still I can be present. Yes, this is uncertain, and still I can breathe. Yes, this is overwhelming, and still I can soften even just a little. And in that softening, healing begins, quietly, slowly, honestly. You start to sense that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of awareness amidst them. That rest is not about getting rid of life's noise. It's about not letting that noise drown out your inner knowing. You know how to rest. You've always known. It's written into your breath, into your body, into the gentle rhythm of your heartbeat. So remember this, not just when life is calm, but when it is chaotic. Especially then. Remember that rest is not a retreat, it's a revolution, a reclaiming of your right to be whole, a return to your original self, unrushed, unwound, unafraid, right here, still breathing. So now, imagine resting not just as something you do, but as something you are. Imagine a way of being in the world that is rooted in ease, in clarity, in the deep, calm knowing that nothing more is needed in this moment, that there is nowhere to get to, nothing to fix, nothing to chase. Only this breath, only this step, only this now. When we rest in the present moment, we allow life to show itself to us without the lens of urgency. We begin to see with eyes unclouded by worry. We feel into life with a heart unburdened by striving, and what we find there beneath the business is a kind of peace that has always been with us, waiting, patient, unmoved. This peace is not passive, it is alive, vibrant, aware. It watches the mind's thoughts rise and fall like waves. It witnesses emotions come and go like weather, and it remains the stillness beneath all movement. When we touch this stillness, something in us exhales. The fight to be more, to do more, to prove more, it softens, and in that softness, we meet ourselves anew. Without pretense, without pressure, just being. You might notice too that in rest your senses begin to open. You hear more deeply, you feel more fully. Even colors may appear richer. Time slows, a single moment expands, and within that expansion, life reveals itself in its fullness. It's not that all your problems disappear. They don't. But you stop identifying with them so tightly. They're still there. But they're no longer all of who you are. There's a vastness within you that holds it all. The joy and the sorrow, the tension and the ease. Rest gives you the space to feel and the space to heal. It gives you the room to listen, not just to the world, but to the quiet voice within you. The voice of your own knowing, the one that says, yes, this is the way. And when you live from that knowing, everything begins to shift. You make different choices, you speak with more kindness. You move with more intention, not rushed, not reactive, but grounded, centered. Clear. Others may not always understand. That's okay. The path of presence isn't always visible to the outside eye, but it is unmistakable to the heart. And slowly, those around you may begin to feel it. Your calm becomes contagious. Your steadiness becomes a light. Not because you're trying to change anyone, but because your rest gives others permission to rest too. This is the quiet power of presence. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply is, like a mountain, like the moon, like the breath. So stay here. Rest here. Let this moment be enough. Let your body feel supported by the ground beneath you. Let your mind grow quiet like a still lake. Let your heart rest open like a flower in the sun. You are already whole, already worthy, already here. Let yourself remember that again and again. It's a subtle truth, but once you see it, it becomes so clear. Peace was never far away. It was never something you had to earn or chase. It was always waiting in the present moment, wrapped inside your breath, resting quietly in the space between thoughts. Sometimes all it needs is your permission to be felt. And perhaps now, in this very moment, you're beginning to sense it. That even amidst all the noise, the complexity, the activity of life, there's a steady hum of stillness beneath it all. It asks nothing of you. It doesn't judge. It doesn't rush. It simply holds. This is not detachment. It's not apathy. It's not the absence of care. It's the deepest kind of caring. A presence so full, so compassionate, that it needs no words to comfort, no answers to heal. Just awareness. Just being. Just this. And when you live from this space, the world doesn't disappear. It becomes more vivid, more sacred. You don't float above life. You sink more deeply into it. You begin to experience things as they are, not through the haze of your expectations or your regrets, but through the freshness of now. That's the real magic of presence. It keeps things real, honest, alive. And when challenges come, and they will, you meet them differently. Not from fear or habit, but from clarity, from a groundedness that says, I may not have control, but I am here. I am breathing. I am able to respond with kindness. I am allowed to pause. You might notice your habits softening, the reactive tendencies loosening their grip, the way you talk to yourself becoming gentler, because presence makes you more intimate with your experience, and with that intimacy comes care. Rest like this doesn't just restore your body, it restores your relationship with yourself. It reminds you that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy of peace. You only have to be present, to show up for yourself as you are. And when you show up in that way, others feel it. Your presence becomes an invitation, a quiet reminder that there is another way to be, a way not built on stress and striving, but on trust, on rhythm, on breath. In Buddhism, there is the image of a still pond. When the surface is agitated, you can't see a reflection. But when it becomes still, the water reveals everything clearly. Rest is that stillness. It lets you see. It lets you return to your essence. Not a perfect version of yourself, just you. Real, raw, enough. And from that place, your actions begin to arise with more ease. You say what's true. You do what matters. You stop rushing toward meaning and begin to live it. In the smallest gestures, in the simplest moments, in a quiet morning walk, in a cup of tea held in both hands, in the act of listening fully, in the decision to do less, but with more heart. That's the gift of rest. That's the revolution of presence. And it's yours. Always will be. There's something profoundly comforting in the realization that you don't have to seek anything outside yourself to rest, that the stillness you crave isn't in a destination or a state you achieve. It's in this breath, in the choice to pause, in the willingness to be. When we stop reaching, even for a moment, a kind of gentle awareness arises. It doesn't demand anything of us. It doesn't ask for improvement or effort. It simply invites us to feel our body, our thoughts, the space around us. And in that openness, something sacred begins to unfold. You might begin to notice the subtle sensations of your breath, the gentle rhythm that's been with you since the beginning. You might feel the weight of your body, the texture of your clothing, the way your chest rises and falls without any need for control. This is presence. It's not flashy, but it is profound. In Buddhist teachings, we often return to the phrase, just this moment, just this breath, just this experience as it is, without judgment, without resistance, just this. There's a story of a monk who, when asked about enlightenment, simply held up a flower. He didn't explain it, didn't define it. He simply pointed to a moment of pure awareness. That is the essence of mindful rest, not in thinking about peace, but in directly experiencing it. And when you come home to that space within, it's like remembering a song you always knew but had forgotten. There's familiarity in the stillness, there's safety in the silence, and there's healing in the act of simply allowing things to be. Even discomfort, when held gently, can soften. Even pain, when observed with compassion, can shift. Not because we force it to, but because we create the space for it to unfold. That's the quiet miracle of presence. It doesn't fix, it befriends. So, as you listen, let your awareness settle not just on the words, but on the spaces between them. Let yourself feel the rhythm of this moment, the quiet support of stillness holding everything. This kind of listening is a practice, not of doing, but of being. Not of solving, but of sensing. It's a return to the body, to the breath, to the place where life is always happening, now. And in that return, you may begin to see how much you've been carrying. The effort, the expectations, the striving, they're not wrong, they're just heavy. And rest is what lets you set them down, even if only for a while, because you deserve that. You deserve to feel ease, not as a reward for productivity, but as your birthright, as something essential and natural. You might picture yourself as a tree, rooted and still, with the wind moving gently through your leaves, or as a quiet pool of water undisturbed, reflecting the world as it is. These images aren't fantasies, they're reminders, symbols of what's already true within you. There is a place inside you that is always at rest, always unshaken, always whole. You don't have to find it. You only have to remember. And right now you are remembering. You're resting, not by escaping, but by arriving, by returning, by opening to this moment exactly as it is. Let yourself linger here. Let yourself be held. And now we arrive at the threshold of understanding, a space where effort drops away and simply being becomes enough. The present moment holds everything, not because it is filled with action, but because it's filled with truth. And in that truth, we find peace. There's a story in the Buddhist tradition of a master and a young student sitting beside a quiet stream. The student asks, "How do I find peace?" The master listens to the question and, without speaking, gestures to the flowing water. The student looks, listens, and after some time, begins to understand. Peace is not something to be held. It is something to be noticed, like the current of a stream, always present, always moving, requiring no control. That lesson remains. The more we try to possess peace, the more elusive it becomes. But when we allow ourselves to rest in what is, it reveals itself. We don't create stillness, we return to it. And so we explore this moment not with goals, but with curiosity. How does the air feel on your skin? What sounds do you hear near and far? Can you feel your heartbeat as it gently reminds you, you are alive, you are here, you are enough? This practice is gentle. It's like holding a candle in the wind, not trying to shield it, but allowing it to flicker naturally. There's no need to grip or force. Presence isn't fragile. It simply responds to attention. And the more we offer our attention without judgment, the more we begin to feel the vastness beneath the surface of things. Imagine your awareness as a wide open sky. Thoughts, sensations, even emotions, they pass through like clouds. Some are dark and heavy, others are light and drifting. But the sky remains, spacious, unmoved. That is your awareness. That is the peace of this moment. It takes courage to sit with what is, especially when what is feels uncomfortable. But Buddhist teachings remind us that discomfort is not our enemy. It's a teacher. When we meet our suffering with mindfulness, with compassion, we stop the cycle of pushing away and pulling toward. We rest in the middle, in the balance, in the still point. There is a silence that doesn't mean absence. It's full, alive, nourishing. It's the silence you touch when words fall away and only breath remains. It is the silence that invites you home, not to a place, but to yourself. So let yourself soften. Feel into the quiet places inside. Notice where the tension is held and offer it your breath. No need to change anything, just be with it. As if you were sitting with a dear friend, offering your presence more than your solutions. This is the essence of mindful rest. A tender return to what's already here, a letting go of what never needed holding in the first place. A trust in the moment to support you, even as everything continues to change. Peace doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It doesn't arrive as a grand revelation. It comes in the soft sigh, the warm light, the simple act of noticing. It's in the way the body exhales after holding its breath. It's in the pause between thoughts. It's in the knowing that this, just this, is enough. Right now, you are resting in that knowing, not by effort, but by surrender, not by reaching, but by releasing. Let the sound of these words be like ripples on a quiet lake. Let them fade as your awareness turns inward. Let the stillness grow. This is the gift of presence. This is the peace of the moment. This is the heart of your own being, unshaken and whole.